Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. This is Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1582 of the War News Stream. And tonight we have very big news out of Ukraine and especially, of course, Crimea yet again. We are currently seeing that Ukraine has slammed Crimea with another massive drone attack that is taking place literally within the hour, and it might still be ongoing as we speak right now. We're also seeing widespread power blackouts erupting across Russian territory, including Crimea as well. Right now it's a little bit hard to see in Crimea because they don't have any light. Also, Zelensky has just ordered huge strikes deep inside of Russia using their new missiles and drones to strike all these Russian military targets way behind the lines. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world, as we have been able to hear significant developments from quite truly every region of the world, including the Middle East, Western Europe, the Middle East, East Asia, and also the United States of America as well over the course of the past 24 hours. As of this moment today, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has ordered that the Ukrainian armed forces are to conduct significant, widespread strikes against the entirety of the Russian Federation at scales they had not yet seen before, and to also hit infrastructure and military targets which have never been hit before by the armed forces of Ukraine. The intent behind these attacks is to bring the Russian Federation to its knees militarily and economically at a far faster rate than is currently anticipated, to see that the Russian Federation must negotiate with Ukraine to end the conflict once and for all. At the same time, the Ukrainians have also stated that they have been able to win a minor victory over the Republic of Belarus, as President Zelensky also mentioned today that the repeaters, which the Ukrainians had given the Belarusians a deadline, which was going to expire as of tomorrow, to be able to shut down the repeaters along the border that were assisting Russian long-range drones in attacking Ukrainian targets in the northern and western parts of the country, have been shut off, meaning that for now the Ukrainians are able to avoid a conflict with the Belarusians, although the Ukrainian armed forces were largely already prepared to conduct strikes on Belarus if necessary. In the meantime, significant shortages of fuel are still being seen and increasing throughout the Russian Federation, with some oblasts quite literally now running out of fuel entirely, much like Crimea today. We've been able to see that a decent amount of these oblasts are largely surrounding Moscow to the south, and we've also seen that a gas processing plant in Orenburg was hit overnight by Ukrainian drone and missile forces, causing irreparable damage to the facility. Speaking of irreparable damage, the damage to the Kopotnya refinery, even according to Russian media, is worse than anticipated. And we have been able to hear that in a bombshell development today, the Russian Federation's own news outlets are stating that it will take until early 2027 to get the Kopotnya refinery, Moscow's largest refinery and one of the 10 largest refineries in the entirety of the Russian Federation, back to operational abilities, meaning that until the next 6 to 8 months, the Kopotnya refinery, which provided 40% of the fuel in the city of Moscow, is completely down and out of action. We've also been able to hear additionally that significant attacks have been conducted against the Crimean Peninsula, specifically against the cities of Sevastopol and Kerch, with major substations being hit within both areas, creating permanent blackouts within Sevastopol and Kerch City. And we've also been able to see that other drone attacks have been attempting to hit and destroy more important targets within both of the cities, with some targets being alleged to be the Kerch Bridge itself. We've also seen that the Ukrainian armed forces have generally stopped most, if not all, Russian advances over the course of the day, inflicting significant casualties onto the Russian Federation's armed forces and largely stopping them dead in their tracks. Special forces have also been conducting raids today within the Zaporizhia Oblast in the rear line areas to directly destroy artillery and Russian outposts by hand, not using drones. We've also seen that medium-range drone forces are continuing to rain hell on Russian supplies on the highway to hell from the M14 from Rostov-on-Don to Melitopol and on down towards Crimea. We've also seen that outside of this news, inside of Eastern Europe, Romania has actually moved through its parliament a possible unification with Moldova as a state action where Romania can open negotiations with the Republic of Moldova to discuss the possible reunification of the two countries as a singular national and political entity. We've also been able to hear that the Ukrainians have warned that Belarusian mobilizations have been detected around the Grodno city area, very close to the Suwalki Gap, while at the same time, we've also been hearing allegations that actions by the Polish president to attempt to sour Ukrainian relations may have been done deliberately for other foreign policy aims and objectives. Denmark will also be supplying 15,000 artillery shells to the state of Ukraine within the next several weeks, while all during that time, the United States of America has actually condemned Chinese harassment with the People's Liberation Army Navy that's been conducted around the near waters of the Republic of China on the island of Taiwan, stating that the actions are extremely escalatory and could lead to the kindling that's inside of this matchbox, which is East Asia, possibly going off if the Chinese continue further escalations. We've also been able to see that there have been some minor developments within the Middle East today, and a littoral combat ship near the Jacksonville, Florida, appears to have caught on fire, and firefighting efforts were successful. However, 7 sailors on board the vessel had to be offloaded due to their injuries inside of Jacksonville Port. Before we get on into all of this news, starting with our largest stories first and moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night, it actually appears that we have some breaking news that's coming out live on air right now. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so a big shocker. We have breaking news at the very beginning of the stream yet again tonight. Also, by the way, just for some context, in case you're wondering why this happens at the same time at the beginning of the stream every single night, that's because usually I get the breaking news at the very beginning when Andrew starts talking, but in order not to trip him up, I'll wait until he gets done with the intro. So that's why I do that, by the way. But jumping into that breaking news we see right now, apparently in the Krasnodar Krai region of Russia, there's a major strike that Ukraine just took place with at an oil depot in Poltoskaya, it looks like. I'm saying that properly. But we have two different angles of it. We have a picture and a video showing the sun rising and seeing the massive damage that has been caused in Krasnodar region at this oil depot. It looks like Ukraine has decimated the entire thing from the looks of it. And of course, in a region it's already having some pretty severe gasoline shortages that we're already hearing about. Also, by the way, baller meme over there. Look at that.
Yeah, it really is a good meme. And we can also see in this picture here we can see the fire that appears to be occurring at the, let me make sure I get the name correct, the Poltovskaya Oil Depot, which apparently is somewhere around the town of Poltovskaya. Really quickly, we'll see if we can try and locate it here on air, as this news has just come out and it is breaking at this moment. The Ukrainian armed forces have been able to land a hit, and as seeing that an oil depot is on fire around the Poltovskaya city area, and at the moment, unfortunately, I'm not seeing the oil depot just kind of like jumping out at me, but I would assume that it's most likely near to this rail yard within the city, as most of the oil depots have some form of rail access. Trying to make sure to look around just a little bit extra, just to make sure that I'm not missing it when it's glaringly obvious. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to find it at the moment right now, but this is very close to the smaller oil refinery and oil storage depot that exists within the towns just south in Slovyansk na Kubani, which have already been hit by Ukrainian attacks multiple times over the past several years, but this is the first time that we've ever been able to hear of an attack on an oil depot just a few miles north within the town of Poltovskaya. To show you all the video that we have here as well of this fire, we were able to see this clip showing us the oil smoke that's now rising into the air from the distance. And we believe that this might actually be filmed somewhere along the highway of the A289, looking outwards towards that area of Poltovskaya, which does generally appear to be confirming the location of the strike and the ongoing fire. And it does seem that another oil depot has been knocked out.
Yeah, and according to the details we have right now, it looks like two of the major oil tanks that are there at this depot apparently are ablaze, and it is located right next to the Poltovskaya rural settlement, according to what I'm seeing right now. So it was struck before, by the way. I think this was struck I think it was like a week ago they struck this, and apparently it's being hit again, basically a double tap just about a week later by the Ukrainians.
I'm still trying to find this thing, folks, because it has to be nearby to the town. But I'm not really seeing any oil storage depots kind of like just jumping out at me, unfortunately, while I'm trying to look around. It is near to the Poltovskaya area that we do know. But outside of that, I don't think we'll be able to get an exact geolocation on that on air. But this is one of the first confirmed attacks that we've been able to hear of so far within the Krasnodar region as of right now from the ongoing Ukrainian drone attack, which was launched just about 2 to 3 hours before we went live on air. So we'll mostly be expecting more news and more developments to be coming out from Krasnodar, Crimea, and other areas, most likely a few hundred miles into the Russian Federation, of possible strikes, hits, and air defense activities that may be conducted on Russian territory at this moment right now. But moving us on out of this breaking news and the strike within the Poltovskaya oil depot area, we do have other major news to cover throughout the course of the day as well, which we're going to be making sure to get into right now. As many of y'all will know, we are talking about a recent drone attack that the Ukrainian armed forces have conducted onto the territory of the Russian Federation, live on air right now. And these attacks have become exceedingly common at this point. The Ukrainian armed forces have been continuing these campaigns to be able to destroy Russian energy and fuel infrastructure to deprive the military of their industrial base to continue the war due to the supplies that they are able to receive from the factories that are able to keep a constant electrical supply. And we're also seeing that the fuel infrastructure is being hit for twofold reasons. One, to destroy the Russian Federation's ability to export crude oil to generate revenue, and a secondary reason, which is one of the more primary ones, to be able to ensure that the Russian Federation's army and the Russian economy no longer have the requisite fuels to be able to operate properly and to be able to keep the economy and the military afloat and running. For these reasons, the Ukrainian armed forces are still conducting these attacks, and we can see that in real time right now, they have confirmed that that's still largely the broader plan, as the Poltovskaya depot is an oil depot, once again showing that they're trying to deprive the Russians of any oil or refined fuels. And in the midst of this today, we have been able to hear that the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has announced that an order has been given to act preemptively, and the president of Ukraine has ordered intelligence and the military to carry out preemptive strikes on targets Russia uses to expand the war. According to him, Russia is moving air defense systems closer to Moscow, Volga, and the Crimean Bridge, pulling them away from other directions. To explain the pertinence of these targets and also the proof that we have here on air that they are doing this, Moscow has the most extensive air defense ring that we have ever seen anywhere inside the country. There are several hundred Pantsir S-1s, S-300s, S-400s, and even other air defense systems, including manpads, which currently are sprinkled around the entirety of the Moscow metropolitan area, attempting to try and give some sort of a veil of air defense to the city, although we've seen that it is largely unsuccessful. Volga is one of Putin's most preferred residences, which is on the highway leading north out of Moscow and on up into the area of the Veliki Novgorod Oblast. Valdai is right here. And this little compound over here, where you can see these helipads and these other support structures, are actually one of Putin's private dachas. You can actually see the dacha that he resides in right there on satellite. A large amount of air defenses have been set up around this area, including over 20 Pantsir S-1 systems and a whopping, and I quite literally mean a whopping, 2 S-400 air defense batteries, both operational with both of their radar systems still running, and every single one of the launchers primed and ready to fire, quite literally in a firing line, at any incoming threats that may attempt to hit this singular house or the support facilities around this private residence, which we believe that Putin is using as one of his primary residences due to the heavy amount of air defenses that exist around it. And finally, the Crimean Bridge is the only other target that's being further fortified with air defenses and other defenses of any sort to stop the bridge from being destroyed. The Kerch Bridge is the only way that Russia has a direct access to the Crimean Peninsula, and for this reason, it not only poses a significant symbolic purpose of unifying Crimea with the Russian Federation via bridge, it also serves an incredibly important purpose of trying to keep some minimum of supplies moving across the strait, at least in theory, although we don't really see it being used for those purposes anymore in the modern day. Railroad and road traffic have largely ground to a complete halt on the bridge, and while the Russians might change that here in the near future due to most of the ferries being knocked out once more, it doesn't appear that they have changed that, at least as of yet, as supply shortages are still crippling Crimea, and there hasn't been any adjustments to their supply schedules and supply routes yet, as of the Ukrainian attacks that have been largely destroying the current supply lines and routes so far. We've also been able to hear that Zelensky stated that Ukrainian operations, including in Crimea, are carefully calculated. Taking a direct quote from Zelensky, he stated, "If Ukraine receives what we have discussed with partners, we will quickly create conditions in which Russia will be forced to choose peace." And so it is showing that
I wonder why he's announcing that, though. Is that's sort of a strange thing? Like, we always make fun of the Russians of announcing their plans ahead of time. Like, the Russians will come out and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then the Ukrainians are like, oh, really? And then they're ready for it. So it's kind of weird that this time Zelensky is coming out and saying that he's going to start striking deeper into Russia, start hitting more war targets. And he's kind of giving the Russians a bit of a heads up. And I wonder if there's a secondary ulterior motive behind that. Maybe he's trying to misdirect them or redirect their attention somewhere else. Because I'm kind of not really understanding why he would announce that.
I think it has more so of a public perception image to work with, much like the Russians are trying to work off of, because the Russians announced their plans to be able to try and recuperate some of their, I guess you could say, public reputation or international reputation, to try and give off this image that they are still a strong and formidable nation that has a significant armed force that can lay waste to anyone that they're going up against. But on the other hand, I think that Zelensky's saying this to start showing that the tides have turned, and now largely the Ukrainians are the ones with the hand and the combat capabilities to be able to bring the war and these strikes to anywhere within the Russian Federation at any time, any place, and to conduct whatever damage they would wish. So I think that the reason why this statement is being made is largely announcing the campaign for public purposes, to put the Russians or the Russian public into an understanding that the war is largely running at Ukraine's pace, at Ukraine's tempo, more so than it is the Russian Federation's at this point.
Maybe so. It just seems to me like there might be some operational motive behind it, possibly. Like, we know, for example, that the Ukrainians keep striking around the Kerch Strait because it's scaring the Russians to believe that the Kerch Bridge is going to get hit next. Also, they were conducting strikes around Moscow quite heavily over the last couple of weeks, trying to force the Russians to move more air defense to protect the capital of Moscow, so that way they'd leave other areas wide open and Ukraine could then attack, like refineries, oil depots, and airfields that had no more missile-based air defenses around it, because Moscow had taken them all away from those areas. So I wonder if he's saying this, so that way maybe the Russians don't hoard a whole bunch of air defense around the critical targets he mentioned, like the Kerch Bridge in Moscow. Maybe he's thinking he'll use reverse psychology to get them to redeploy it elsewhere. I'm not so sure if that's what he's trying to do here, but there seems like there's something else here, though. It's kind of a strange thing to announce that. I get the whole aspect of intimidation, but usually Ukraine has a plot behind it, usually.
It could be a plot, but I would say, however, that generally Russian air defenses, no matter their concentration or lack thereof, have largely proven ineffective throughout the entirety of the war, especially during the Kopotnya refinery attacks, where Ukrainian drones were able to penetrate the deepest layers of the Russian air defense perimeter around Moscow and cause what is now being told is irreparable damage to the Kopotnya refinery, which we'll be talking about here a little bit later on stream. But due to the fact of the Ukrainian drone attacks on the Kopotnya refinery being successful, successful, even going up against the largest air defense perimeter and the most well-armed air defense perimeter in the country. I don't really think this serves any purpose, at least in my opinion, other than to intimidate the Russians, because it really doesn't matter if they have a million air defense systems around a singular city like Moscow, or absolutely none, like for example in Orenburg, which we'll also be getting into today. The result is almost the same. Ukrainian drones are able to make it into the area largely without being shot down, and are able to hit and cause near irreparable damage to their targets, destroying them and putting the Russians into an even worse strategic outcome because of the loss of abilities and resources that they face from each of these attacks. So I'd actually say I think that this truly is more so just intimidation factor and publicized statements to make it clear, maybe to the Russian public, that the war is now Ukraine's to largely control the outcome of, and they are going to be sending the war into a quick resolution, if possible, with the long-range drone and missile strikes that they're now going to be conducting at an even larger scale at this point than they have in the past.
We'll have to see.
We'll definitely have to see. And in the meantime, we have also been able to hear that, speaking of these significant attacks and some of the bombshell developments that have come out from these attacks over the course of the day, we have seen that inside of the Crimean Peninsula, which has once again come under another overwhelming attack overnight, that the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to knock out a major substation within Sevastopol. Pictured here. This is the substation, the 330 to 220 kilovolt switching yard in the city of Sevastopol. To show y'all right here, this is the very substation itself on the outskirts of the city, and from what we understand, the Ukrainians have been able to completely knock this substation out. This was the major substation that actually provided all of the electricity, or largely the electrical distribution, across the grid for the city of Sevastopol, and with this substation being knocked out, the power is now completely unavailable throughout the entirety of the city of Sevastopol, from what we're understanding. If any electricity does exist in Sevastopol, it is either being provided by backup generators, or it is a fluke because that part of the city might be connected to a separate part of the grid that's not a part of the larger Sevastopol distribution scheme for the electrical systems. This is a major hit and is going to be knocking out most of Sevastopol's citizenry and also the Russian army possibly from any use of electricity. Now, many people will say, and this is quite an obvious statement and a very good and observant one, that the city of Sevastopol's military forces that are operating there as a part of the Russian military clearly do have some form of generators. Almost every single military in the world has backup generators, so that way if the electrical grid goes off, they can pop on the generators and keep backup functions operational. And that would be true. But we do have to remember that Sevastopol and the whole of Crimea is now dealing with a critical fuel shortage that is affecting quite literally everybody. It's so bad that they're now refusing to sell fuel to anyone that is not the military or government services and administrative duties within the Crimean Oblast. For this reason, we would generally understand that if the Russians do have backup generators in Sevastopol, their fuel resources are most likely going to be extremely limited, and they will either have to ration the fuel, meaning that for most parts of the day, their forces will not be up to full operational capacity, or will be able to use the systems that require a constant supply of electricity. Or we might see that they try and use all of their fuel in the meantime, hoping that the situation will be fixed soon, and then it might not, meaning that they'll run out of diesel for their generators, and those systems that will require the electricity to operate will go offline, possibly permanently, meaning that Sevastopol will be left even further in the dark.
It's really funny, though, because you got to remember, Sevastopol served as the historic headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet before they got run off to Novorossiysk, because the Russians basically had to evacuate Sevastopol a long time ago and take their ships all the way back to mainland Russia and also back to Novorossiysk to get them out of the danger zone. But there's still a crew here. There's still a small presence of the Russian Navy here, and now that presence, mainly like a skeleton command crew, basically, they don't even have electricity to operate their facility, and the gasoline or diesel that the generators run on is going to be in short supply. So effectively at this point, it's almost safe to say that Ukraine has evicted the Russians from their historic Black Sea base right here. They've been evicted almost completely from it. It's almost totally useless, it's unsafe, and Sevastopol's been rendered useless.
It really has been rendered useless from the electricity side, the water side, the food supply in, and the fuel supplies. Almost every single major supply line that would be needed to keep Russian forces and the city of Sevastopol operational, to keep the Russian forces garrisoned there, have completely collapsed at this point, and the Ukrainians are ensuring that this damage will remain permanent and long-term with the attacks that they're conducting in the present day right now. And these sorts of attacks were also repeated in Kerch overnight, as we were able to see that an electrical substation outside of Kerch was also hit as well, apparently knocking out power to that city, along with the oil depot, which is still blazing in the harbor at this moment right now. We've also been able to hear that at the same time, throughout the area, as of just a few hours before we went live on air, there is now a new Ukrainian drone attack that is being conducted against the city, and we were able to get several clips showing some of the impacts and air defense fire throughout the port as the Ukrainian drones were entering the region. Here's the clips. We see one fire apparently already started by a drone, and we see further air defense fire in the distance. You can actually
Man, they're scared to death once they hear the Russian air defense going off. Any Russian citizen or anybody with any good sense would run for cover.
Man, it's in the buildings, but yeah, man, like, it's like, you never know. I mean, like, they might do that in the air defense. We've seen that a million times at this point. We also are able to see the air defense fire in this short clip here. Once again, just letting us hear the crack of the rounds flying over, trying to shoot down the drones. And we also were able to see this duplicate clip as well. And just to make sure that this is not another duplicate clip, it is another duplicate clip. So we're going to be deleting that one. But that is showing us at least a small glimpse of the ongoing attack that is happening on Sevastopol right now. And hopefully we'll be able to get some updates and information about what the Ukrainians hit, as generally every attack that the Ukrainians are conducting on Sevastopol always amounts to some form of a major hit in the present day. So we're either going to be getting that information live on air right now, probably within the next 30 minutes of what they hit, or we'll most likely be getting it sometime tomorrow when the footage finally gets out onto the internet for the public to be able to see. We've also been able to see, additionally, making sure to cover Kerch in the same air as Sevastopol, that some people are trying to get on the trains, which most of the trains have been canceled in Crimea, back to the Russian Federation, as the railway bridge is still operational. But from what we know, most of the Russian state railway services into Crimea have mostly ceased operations. A large amount of the trains on the schedule in Simferopol and Sevastopol have been completely canceled due to a lack of fuel and supplies, but it looks like there might still be some scheduled trains leaving Kerch City to be able to make the short distance across the Kerch Bridge over into the Russian Federation, and highly likely onto Krasnodar or some other city further north like Rostov. Many people were seen outside of the station today, and we were able to see this influencer showing the smoke billowing over the station in the distance as hundreds of people are trying to board the few trains that are left and leave Crimea while there are still trains on the daily schedules. Here's that brief clip. We see them looking around, showing the humongous queues of people as they too are also trying to get in the line and get on the next train out of Crimea.
Oh, with the fire out there in the distance too.
Yeah, not a really beautiful vista, the sun rising. It's a romantic day, you know, like the oil fires are burning nicely, the sun's rising, wonderful.
Yeah, it looks like Zelensky canceled their vacations a little bit early, it looks like. Also, notice this, by the way. Almost every single person, every single Russian filming a video here appears to be either, if they're female, they're like the diva type Russians, like that you can tell are like used to living in pretty much luxury for the most part. Or they're like the occasional dude you see is like the Giga Chad from Moscow or something like that. These are clearly, but I would imagine most of these people that you're seeing trying to flee Crimea right now are heading back to the Moscow region. I would imagine most of them probably are.
I would say that they probably are as well. And I see a lot of people actually talking about some of the logistics involved in the railway operations around this area. And before we get on in the poll, this is actually an interesting question. Some people have been asking in the chat, are the trains having to be reduced in size due to the damage that was caused by one of the original attacks on the bridge back in 2023, where we saw that a couple of oil tanks caught on fire on the bridge and might have warped or damaged the actual structural elements of the bridge, which might limit the weight that's allowed to cross? And the answer to that is generally no. You can actually put as many rail cars as you would like onto the bridge for the larger part, as long as they're not over exceeding any weight restrictions that are in place, because the axles are usually just putting down pressure on the pressure points on the rails, meaning that you could have a train that's 4 cars long or a train that is 20 cars long, and as far as the surface area is concerned on the bridge under the cars, the same weight is being put onto each pressure point where the wheels are actually touching the rails. On the other hand, however, the one limitation that could exist is the weight limit of the locomotives that are used to move across the bridge. Some locomotives are heavier than others, and because of that, they're really more so the limiting factor of what can be put on a bridge. Now, if they cannot get a large locomotive across the bridge, and say they're trying to add on more passenger cars to deal with the influx of demand of people trying to leave Crimea literally today, they might be able to put 12 rail cars onto a train, but the problem is that one locomotive might not have the power to pull it. And if the locomotives that they're trying to attach are too heavy, trying to get the power they need to be able to pull that train across the bridge, they can just attach two lighter weight locomotives, couple them together as a multiple unit, and then pull that larger passenger train across. So generally, the bridge's infrastructure capabilities is not going to have too much of an impact on the Russians bulking up their passenger trains to try and get as many people out as possible, if that's what people are asking right now. We also were able to see some little bits of extra detail inside the Kerch area, as we were able to see another long line of people waiting for gasoline as they were trying to get out of Crimea. This is just a couple of miles away from the Kerch Bridge itself. We can see this line for gas literally goes on miles.
Yeah, I know we can't show it. By the way, YouTube will not let us show this, like this fighting footage on here. They'll take our video down and everything over it. But there's been fights breaking out in these gas lines. Like I'm talking about straight up brawls. Like dudes are like exchanging blows. Like they're literally sucker punching each other in the fuel lines and getting in fist fights. And it's happening left and right. I've seen at least 2 or 3 videos just today alone of the dudes getting heated in the fuel lines. Apparently, some people are trying to jump the line. Some people are just getting heated and they're like getting out of their car and picking fights with people. It's just a whole thing all over the place, really. The tensions are running high.
It really is running incredibly high. I mean, it's pretty tense at this moment. And also, we were able to hear just a little recently that apparently some drones look to be heading towards the Kerch Bridge. But we haven't heard of any direct attacks on the bridge at this point right now. So we're still waiting to see if anything's ever going to hit the bridge. We're feeling like right now most likely will not be. But it's probably going to be, once again, trying to hit something in Kerch or nearby to the bridge's bases on either side, either on the east or the western side. But with that in mind, a lot of people are talking about the Russian crisis in Crimea getting exorbitantly worse. We're now seeing that major cities like Kerch and Sevastopol have largely been knocked entirely off of the grid today and are no longer receiving any electricity from anywhere. And so the cities have largely gone completely dark. And a lot of people are starting to wonder, is this going to be enough to force the Russians to end the war? And it seems as though a lot of people are generally thinking the same thing on this. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about it? And what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so over the last about 48 hours or so, I've been seeing analysts left and right saying the war started with Crimea and it's going to end with Crimea. And honestly, I take issue with that because what we're seeing happening in Crimea is a crisis, but it's way too early to say the war is going to end with Crimea. That is way too early to say that. And also, it assumes that Putin even cares about the condition of the civilians that are inside of Crimea, which I would argue that he probably does not. He doesn't care at all. He's never cared about the mainland Russian civilians, so why would he care about the ones stuck in Crimea? That wouldn't make much sense. But now that we're seeing that Russia's Crimea crisis is getting worse, is it possible that it will force Vladimir Putin to end the war? It looks like 52% of the audience said it'll cripple Russia, but it will not end the war. 29% said no, it's simply another escalation in a long series of escalations, and 14% said yes, it will. It'll end the entire war because Russia will have to be forced to bring it to an end. And like I said, I don't think this is going to be the end of the war. If anything, Putin's going to escalate. That's what he's going to do here because, short of Putin being ousted from his position, this war is not going to be ending anytime soon. Short of him being ousted from that position, that's up to the Russian civilians to do that, by the way. Unless they mount some sort of military coup or something like that, Putin will be remaining in power until his last days, whenever he passes away from old age. He'll be there forever. So I don't think Crimea is going to be the end of it. It's certainly going to cripple Russia. I would agree with that 100%. But it's just going to cause pain and suffering on the civilians. But Putin's regime will survive. So I'm with the 52%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would be with the 52% as well. This is definitely going to cripple the Russians' strategic position and force posture within Crimea and most of the southern front of Ukraine, but it's not going to be ending the war in Crimea. The kind of concept of the war starting in Crimea and it ends in Crimea doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you look at that in a historical lens. That would be like saying World War II started in Poland and is going to end in Poland. As many of you all know, World War II did not end in Poland. It ended in Japan and at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which is very different than what a lot of people would say was the start of the Second World War, which was in 1939 in Poland. Some other people might say Crimea started the war, it's going to finish the war. But for example, if you look at the First World War, it was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, in modern-day Bosnia and Herzegovina, that started the Second World War, the First World War, correction, and the First World War ended in a German unconditional surrender in a French rail car in France, near to no man's land. Very different location. And so I would say that historically, there really isn't a lot of a precedent to say that a war it starts somewhere and it's going to end in the very same place. In movies, that would make for great writing because it all ties it together, and the beginning of the story is the end of the story. But in real life, it very rarely ever works that way. So I would have to say that, in my honest opinion, this is definitely going to be crippling the Russian forces' position in the south, and this might lead to a front collapse in the south, that the Ukrainians take advantage of it and have a successful offensive plan drawn up where they're able to break through and overwhelm Russian forces in Zaporizhia. But I do not believe that we're going to be seeing that this will force an end to the war just because of how bad the situation is getting in Crimea. A reminder for everybody, the North Koreans starved to death in the millions in the 1990s under Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, and that did not bring an end to the North Korean regime. They're still alive and kicking today. And so humanitarian crises like these do not always amount, in a limited region like Crimea, to a complete end and a collapse of the war, especially for a dictatorial state which largely does not care for the well-being or concern of their people. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And in the meantime, while we have started to talk a little bit about Crimea and the hardships they're seeing there, we have also been able to see that inside of the areas around Moscow, the situation is getting quite bad there as well. In the Vladimir region, fuel queues are continuing to grow, and in this clip here, we can see, much like in Crimea, there are miles of cars waiting, apparently still on and running, for gas. I don't get the sense of this. I mean, they're probably burning as much gas waiting in the line as they're getting at the gas station. So once they get the gas in the gas station, they drive back to the end of the line and sit there and wait again until they get to the pump. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't get it either. Also, it's like since they know there's a gas shortage, I'm like, why do so many people need to fuel up constantly if they know there's a gas shortage? Wouldn't they be conserving their fuel? Look, there's even a bus pulling up to get fuel right there at the station.
Man, they had the whole charter bus, man, whipping up in this thing. Dang. Well, I guess they're at the front of the line, so they're kind of lucky, but it doesn't make, the Russians, as far as the fuel crisis is going, aren't really making that much sense. We also got to see in the Lupensk Oblast, a similar situation is also occurring. We see them showing the cars that are at the gas station, and the literal endless line of them trying to get in.
Look at these nice cars out here. Where's this again?
This is in the, I believe, let me make sure that I check this again. It's in the Lipetsk region, actually, near to the city of Lipetsk, or on the M4 highway.
Wow, they must have some Russian millionaires out there. I'm seeing a couple of new Mercedes, some new BMW, that looks like some Mitsubishi mixed in there too. So looks like some people in Lipetsk have made a little bit of that bag, you know what I mean?
Man, the people of Lipetsk be making that dough. Man, like, they be making a little bit of cash. Oh, someone came up hitting those beats. You see this guy is just yapping about the endless lines and how bad the situation is. Oh my god, wait a minute, that's the line over there. So it wraps all the way around here, and then they make a right turn and go on the other side of the gas station, then they make another right and go along the front of the gas station, and then they finally whip around to these several lines in front of the cameraman to the pump.
That's crazy. And also, by the way, like this may be a bit of a silly question, but why are the gas lines forming at every single gas station? Because this suggests that it's taking like a super long time for people to fuel up. It's like, why is that, by the way? Did they just get a shipment of gas off the truck and unload it at the gas station and people therefore crowded into that one particular station? Like, why? What's the reason for the gas line particularly?
It's kind of a supply bottleneck is the best way to explain it, because of how the gas situation is working. A lot of the gas stations that would normally be operating have shut down, and that's something that we don't really see often in a lot of films, but in a couple of films that we've gotten from Western Russia, we have seen people driving by gas stations that are quite literally shut down because they have no diesel or gas to sell. And because of that, a lot of these cars, which would be distributed over a wider area going to dozens of gas stations, are all driving in circles just trying to find the but one gas station that's open, which would be this one. And so all of the cars that would be spread out amongst 12 gas stations are all pulling up into this singular one. And because people are still taking a little bit of time, it's not a long amount of time, to fill up with gas, but so many cars are coming to the singular gas station, this is how the line starts to form. We start to see these endless multi-mile long queues at every single gas station in most of the afflicted areas.
Yeah, because I was just thinking in my head, I was like, if a fuel truck shows up, I'm not really sure how many gallons of gas a fuel truck can hold in it. But let's say a fuel truck pulls up to the gas station, unloads its fuel into the underground gas station tanks, and then the people see that. So like a whole bunch of like lemmings, they all rush to the gas station and try to get that gas. It's like this line right here is not going to be serviced. Like most of these people aren't going to get gas whatsoever because that fuel truck holds a limited amount. It's not going to fill up, thousands of cars that line up. So it's really kind of pointless if you think about it.
It really is, honestly. Also, someone else pointed out a great point in the chat. A couple of people have said this also could be panic buying, which we definitely know is true. I mean, back in the South, whenever a hurricane would come through, everybody would hurry up and get down to the gas stations, and so there would be somewhat lengthier lines and a lot of people down in the gas stations sometimes if a hurricane was about to come through, because nobody wanted to wait for the hurricane refugees to come flooding up out of Florida and South Alabama and start sucking the gas out of the gas stations then, and in case of the prices rose for some reason relative to the hurricane, you didn't want to get hit with the higher prices at the pump. So most people would also go out and basically make a run on the pumps to try and get gas before any of that happened. So that could also be adding to the traffic as well. But it's a surreal amount basically everywhere at this point in Russia. We see him showing the line wrapping all the way around the gas station, all the way around the front to get into these lines, like we were just saying.
And then the people up here at the gas pump are just taking their sweet old time. They're just like taking like a good solid 10 minutes to fuel up. It's like, what the hell are they doing up there? Like eating a snack or something at the gas pump?
Man, they're sitting there, man, like a normal gas trip. They're going into the gas station, going to the restroom, picking out some snacks, a little water, like taking their time. I would like 60 rubles on pump 3, please. Sir, that's like literally like 0.9 of a liter. Oh, like, man, like, well, let me go check if I have more money in the car, please. Man, they're probably doing that whole deal, and that's also what's making the lines so extremely long. Meanwhile, the lines aren't going to be getting any shorter because if y'all didn't hear today, the gas processing plant in Orenburg got blown to smithereens by a drone attack last night. Curiously enough, there wasn't really a lot of footage of it. This is one of the few pictures we got. But the Ukrainian armed forces did hit the Russian Orenburg gas processing plant and its only helium plant, which is 1,200 kilometers from the front. The strike hit a massive chemical hub that supplies sulfur for explosives and helium used in military rocket engines, guidance systems, and fuels. So it does appear that the Ukrainians did deal a significant blow once again to the Russian Federation and their supply lines within the area of Orenburg, as we can see in that gas processing plant. But the biggest news that has come out today came out from Moscow. The Kopotnya refinery, one of the 10 largest in the Russian Federation and the largest refinery in the Moscow city area, has been knocked out of operation for 6 to 8 months. Russian news articles today are now stating that the Kopotnya refinery is going to be shut down until 2027 due to the damage that was caused by the prior drone strikes. This is one of the longest downtimes that we've heard reported so far of any refinery when the information comes out about the damage that was caused and how long they're going to be offline as a result. This is going to be keeping 40% of Moscow's refined fuel supplies offline for the next 6 to 8 months, meaning that any attacks that are conducted against Moscow's fuel infrastructure from there are going to be knocking things further on down from 60% to a lower volume, not from 100% down, because this refinery is not going to be operational in any amount of time at any near point in the relative future, quite literally for the rest of this year and possibly a little bit on into next year for the next several months starting the new year. This is pretty bad. I don't think I'd even have to explain how bad that really is for Moscow, because Moscow has been insulated from the larger fuel shortages and crises that have been affecting Russia for months now as best as they possibly could. And now the main fuel provider to the city has been knocked out. And so, with that in mind, Moscow might be suffering more acute fuel shortages than any other city that we see in Western Russia at the moment right now. We've also been able to see that within Moscow today, it appears that the Russians are starting to change that tune. They're starting to change that little tune. As the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said, Russia is ready to continue negotiations with the United States, but is demanding clarity on the developments that took place at the G7 summit.
Oh,
The
oh,
Russians love
jeez.
peace again.
Oh my God, not again, not again. Like we could, well, please, not again. Also, by the way, the Russia's not at war with the United States; they're at war with Ukraine. So what are they talking about? They want to have negotiations with the United States. Zelensky just sent them a letter, literally saying, "Let's talk, let's end the war, and we'll start negotiations at the front line." And Russia ignored it. The United States should not get involved in this whatsoever because it's not our problem. Like it's not the United States' prerogative to negotiate on behalf of Ukraine. Ukraine's a sovereign country. So if the U.S. bites us, which I'm sure they probably will, that's another strategic mistake.
It is a pretty bad mistake if we were to try and act like the Russians were serious with this. They whip out this line whenever things are not going their way, and they're trying to make sure that the United States doesn't help to further push it out of their direction and out of their favor. So this is once again another stupid attempt by the Russians to try and play games with the U.S. administration. They might succeed. We've never seen this fail yet. This is the tried and true trick of the Russians of let's talk and let's make a deal. And the word deal is like a Manchurian candidate trigger for the U.S. administration currently. Whenever anyone mentions the word deal, we will literally put the brakes on everything and stop the presses, even if it's going to hurt us in the long run, to act like it has any merit to it whatsoever. So this might actually succeed. We don't know yet, but the lure has been thrown out there by the Russians once again. We've also been able to hear that Russian gasoline prices have surged 3% from the 16th of June to the 22nd, apparently reaching as a nationwide average 71.2 rubles per liter. We have seen that prices are much larger in most areas of Western Russia. A lot of pictures from the local gas stations have shown that prices have surged to around 120 to 140 rubles per liter, but apparently the national average, also including, I'm guessing, most of the eastern regions of Russia, averages it still out to about 71.2 rubles, according to a Bloomberg report. It was the largest weekly jump in at least 2 decades. Fuel restrictions or supply problems are now recorded in about 75% of Russia, while Moscow is discussing a diesel export ban and incentives for gasoline imports. Once again, showing that they're trying to figure out how to fill in the gap that the Kopotnya refineries knocking out has left in the Moscow fuel supply structure. It does appear that a lot of people are talking about this fuel crisis, which at this point has gone from a crisis to a fuel disaster is what we could largely describe it as, and the Ukrainian attacks are only amounting the damage into a worse and worse issue with each passing day. A lot of people are wondering when in the world an economic collapse could come for Russia, considering that at this point the economy and the military looks to be grinding to a near halt within most areas of the country. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So the one thing that everybody was worried about like hell here in the United States about the Middle Eastern situation with the Strait of Hormuz was if we don't have enough diesel to operate our logistics companies here in the United States, then we won't have any way to transport food to the grocery store. We won't have any way to transport the gasoline to the gas station, and the entire economy is going to come crumbling down. So that did not end up happening to the United States because so far it looks like the U.S. has surrendered to Iran. But Russia, out of all the places that could have had this problem, Russia, while they were sitting over there in the corner laughing at the United States, basically capitulating to Iran, now Russia is experiencing that exact problem they were making fun of us for about to be going through. So with all these different Russia regions experiencing gasoline outages as a result of the crisis spreading, what do you think is going to happen next? It looks like 46% said there will be economic collapse in months, while 36% said it'll be in weeks, and 13% said someone will save Russia. And this is a hard one because once you run out of diesel and you start having a shortage and your trucks don't go to the stores and you start having a collapse like that, that starts having a ripple effect. And that's about the worst case scenario for any economy anywhere in the world is you start having a ripple effect with logistics. Your entire economy is in jeopardy at that point. And Russia's already about halfway there as we speak, not to quote the song. But apparently, I think it's about to get worse. I think they're going to start seeing that stores start closing down. People start having a hard time running across food. There'll be food shortages, not just in Crimea, but mainland Russia as well. And obviously, they can't even get gasoline right now either. So I would say that we'll probably be seeing some form of limited economic collapse probably in weeks. That's my guess. That's how quick this can happen. So I'm with the 36%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that a Russian economic collapse could be coming within weeks, but I think that a perilous economic collapse where the situation is so bad that it could force an end to the war based on what we're seeing over the past few weeks would probably come in months. So I'd say the collapse might come in weeks, but an actual end of, say, military operations due to the economic calamities would probably come in months. So I'd actually be with the 45% for that reason. Considering that most Russian gas stations look like this right now, like I would say that the honest truth is I don't really think they have a lot of time left.
Yeah, really. It's hard to tell if that's the gas station owner that's got his hand out like that, or is that the Russian civilians trying to get the fuel with their hand out like that? It's kind of hard to tell.
I think this is everyone. Like, I don't think this is any particular group. I think this is just what the average Russian looks like at this point. We'll put him center screen to make sure that he's symmetrical for everyone here. But I think that that's generally what the situation in Russia is looking like. I mean, we can literally see it. So I would say I would be with the 45%. I think that the economic collapse of a severe enough form that is going to lead the Russians to possibly have to just peace out of the war and end the conflict might be coming within the next several months, at least in my opinion. So I'd be with the 46%. But moving us on out of that bit of news, we have also been able to see other major developments that have also happened inside of the Russian Federation. At this moment right now, we are hearing of a large number of drones that are flying into the Russian Federation and are currently conducting attacks against most major cities and also the southern regions of the Russian Federation, which we've already been able to see on air with the attack at the area of the Poltovskaya refinery. And we've also been able to additionally see some other major news that's come out from Belarus today. Not speaking of the internal Russian situation, but speaking more so of the situation between Ukraine and the Republic of Belarus. As many of y'all will know, the Republic of Belarus was given a 1-week ultimatum by the Ukrainians to shut down and remove the repeaters from the Belarusian border or to face destruction at the hands of the armed forces of Ukraine in long-range drone attacks against the repeaters and also against critical infrastructure and military sites inside of the Republic of Belarus. Tomorrow was going to be the very deadline for those sorts of actions to be done, or the Ukrainians were going to attack the Belarusians. As of today, we have heard that according to President Zelensky, the repeaters along the border used to coordinate Russian strikes in Ukraine from Belarusian territory have stopped operating within 24 hours of the final elements of the deadline being reached where the Ukrainians would attack the Belarusians. The systems reportedly played a key role in guiding attacks launched from across the northern border into Ukraine. So it does appear that according to the statements by the president of Ukraine, the Ukrainians were able to win a small victory against the Belarusians, and by the ultimatum of either shutting those down or going to war with Ukraine, it looks like the Belarusians have shut down the repeaters and have stopped the Russians from using those repeaters to further coordinate and conduct effective attacks throughout the northern region of Ukraine. This is a very interesting one because it appears that the Ukrainians played a gamble and it succeeded, at least in the way that they hoped, from the statements that we're hearing right now. The idea that we had a little while ago is that the Russian Federation is, well, actually more so the state of Ukraine, correction, is most likely playing a gamble, a win-win gamble, considering that they're saying that the Russians might launch an invasion into northern Ukraine from Belarus at some point in the fall, that by forcing a confrontation now, they're going to get the Belarusians to back off, shut down the repeaters, and possibly become scared enough that the Russians cannot pressure them into supporting a Russian offensive from Belarusian territory. Or the Ukrainians were going to end up seeing that the Belarusians did not meet the deadline, and then the Ukrainians would be able to conduct an attack on Belarus in advance before the Russian offensive, which would then force the Russians to run into the area unprepared and possibly be slaughtered by the Ukrainian armed forces and the drone forces. That's at least a plan that we were thinking of several days ago or a week ago when this ultimatum was issued by the Ukrainians. And now at this day and age right now, the Ukrainians appear to have gone with the former option of success, of the win-win solution, which is to see that the repeaters were shut down, according to Zelensky's claim. And a lot of people are talking about this situation in the chat right now, and we'll be getting to what y'all are thinking of here in a moment, because we also were able to get some additional news out of Belarus. In the meantime, while the repeaters were shut down today, we were able to hear that Lukashenko apparently went on a business trip today, outside of the country.
Oh, perfect time for a trip. I would imagine he didn't go to Crimea.
No, I don't think it went to Crimea. Man,
I wonder
maybe
where you went. Actually, it's like where does Belarus or where does Lukashenko go for a vacation? Like what? Like Putin's closet or something?
I'm going on the business trip, boy. It's like, where the hell does the leader of Belarus go on a business trip? Like, who does business with Belarus even? Like, nobody. Like, it's like, where in the world do you go outside the country for a business trip? It's beyond me. I have no clue. That's a mystery. I think he was just trying to leave the country in case of the Ukrainians attacked. He already had packed up and left, I'm guessing. We also were able to hear, additionally, that apparently, according to some news that came out today from the Wall Street Journal, they've been saying that the Kremlin is pressuring Belarus and preparing for a new escalation, which I feel like a lot of this is kind of news that we've already covered here on the show, and I'm feeling like the Wall Street Journal might have just, caught up to, like a week ago's news, but I'll make sure to read it to y'all just in case if it is something new. Moscow hopes to use the neighboring country as a springboard to expand the war in Ukraine or launch operations against NATO members. That quite literally sounds like what we were talking about like a couple of weeks ago. Moscow's reported requests include the use of Belarusian territory for drone strikes on Ukraine and expanding the front line westward to draw Ukrainian troops away from key areas in the east. This is actually quite literally what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Alternatively, Belarus could be used for operations against NATO neighbors, which is also something that we talked about on air. Most discussions took place between Lukashenko and the Russian ambassador to Belarus, Boris Gryzlov. Sources note there are no signs yet that Russia plans an immediate operation from Belarus, but the possibility is being considered. I gotta say, folks, the Wall Street Journal is a little bit behind the curve with this one because making sure to read the wordage word for word on air. This is quite literally what we were talking about weeks ago when the Ukrainian intelligence agencies came out with a report that the Russians were planning on doing these actions from the territory of Belarus, either launching drone attacks or an armed invasion into northern Ukraine to eat up manpower. And I'd say that the Wall Street Journal and most mainstream news organizations appear to be a little bit behind the times in getting to the up-to-date kind of coverage and reporting that we do here on air. And if you really appreciate the kind of up-to-date coverage that we give, y'all can like, comment, and subscribe right now. Y'all will be able to get the news from this channel apparently weeks before most mainstream news channels are able to provide it to you. So make sure to subscribe to the Enforcer channel and hit that little bell button right next to the subscribe button to get all the news that you want. This is a merciless plug that I just didn't even plan on doing, but considering how slow they were to get to the punch on this story, I feel like we have to make a plug because this is absolutely atrocious how slow the speed of their reporting is. This came out today. Like we covered this like what, 2 weeks ago? When did we put this on as a title on the live streams?
It was at least several days ago, probably about a week ago. Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm trying to see how long ago it was. Let's see. Dang, let's see here. I can't even see. Man, I can't even see how long ago it was. It's like a month ago or so. It was an extremely long time ago. So make sure to subscribe, folks, please. It really helps out the channel, and we also love to see more people joining us for the news here every single day. But outside of that, a lot of people aren't talking about this very news that came out from the border today, that the repeaters were allegedly shut down. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so I will say this sounds like a victory for Ukraine right off the bat. If you don't look too deep into it, it sounds like Ukraine just scored their first major geopolitical victory over another country, this time being Belarus. But I will say there's a couple of caveats with the story that might put a bit of a dampener on it. Because right now Ukraine's saying that they got Belarus to turn off the Russian radio repeaters near the border. That's a lot different than removing them, which is what the Ukrainians were demanding initially. They were saying remove the radio repeaters or else. So far, at least based on the wording, it sounds like they haven't been removed, but they were simply turned off. And also, I'm not really sure how Ukraine knows they've been turned off or not. I'm not really sure how they have a way to check that, unless somehow they have some method I'm not familiar with or something. But right now they're saying the war is averted, and they have officially basically made the deadline moot that was coming up to start an attack on Belarus to remove those repeaters. So what are your thoughts about it? 48% said Ukraine won, Belarus backed down, and 45% said the Belarus situation isn't over yet. And I would say personally, I tend to believe Ukraine on a lot of things, but on this one, I'm having some doubts about it. I'm going to be totally honest here. For one, Belarus didn't comply with the demand. That's very clear at this point. They didn't comply with that demand. And also, it appears to be that Ukraine is trying to tamp down the escalations right before the deadline. So I think Ukraine might have bitten off more than they could chew here, and they were trying to de-escalate it before it gets out of control. That could be what they're doing with this. Once again, that is speculation. Maybe Belarus did turn them off temporarily, but everything something that can be turned off, like everybody's saying in the live chat, can be turned back on at a moment's notice. And that's why Ukraine was originally asking them to be ripped down and demanding they get ripped down. But so far they haven't. And not to mention that Putin's putting crazy pressure on Lukashenko to let Belarus be used as a staging point for Russian drone attacks on the north of Ukraine. So I don't think the situation's over. I'm with the 44%. We might be in a momentary reprieve from this situation, but I don't think the Belarus situation is anywhere close to being over. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd actually have to be with the 44% as well. I think that this is not far, this isn't completely over. It looks like a minor victory, and that's why I made sure to say that it was minor at the beginning. But at the same time, it doesn't really look like the situation's entirely over. For one, this does not guarantee that they're going to be removed from the border, and they could be switched on and off intermittently whenever the Russians are about to conduct an attack on Ukraine and then turned off right afterwards, which means that the Belarusians did not meet the Ukrainian ultimatum and they would still be supporting Russian military operations. We also have not seen yet that the Belarusians have largely backed off completely of supporting a Russian military invasion of Ukraine from their territory, meaning that the Ukrainians might not have achieved a lot at this moment. And it is interesting to note that the president of Ukraine made the statement today that the repeaters were specifically being shut off largely as a meeting of their ultimatum. It might be showing that the Ukrainians are attempting to de-escalate the situation because they might have gotten new information in the meantime since the ultimatum was issued to show that a war or a confrontation with Belarus right now might not be beneficial, and it might also be the case that the Russian Federation actually does not have any larger plans with Belarus, and therefore starting a conflict with Belarus would generally be unwise, considering that it may no longer be inevitable from what they understand as far as their intelligence is concerned. It may also be that they are deciding that it might not even be necessary to conduct these actions because the war might end before the Russians are able to even launch any actions from Belarusian territory in the fall due to the economic situations now enveloping the whole of Russia. So I would say generally it's not over at this moment, but it is very interesting to see that the Ukrainians are lauding it as a victory over the Belarusians, and we'll have to see where in the world it's going from there here in the near future. But with that, we've also been able to hear that at the same time, the Ukrainians have also put out, according to Andrei Sibia, a following statement about a Belarusian situation in Lithuania. Andrei Sibia is the foreign minister of the state of Ukraine currently. We urge the international community to stay vigilant in light of the mobilization exercises currently underway in Belarus's Grodno region. From June 20th to July 2nd, the military commissariat of the Oshimani district is notifying approximately 2,000 conscripts and setting up preliminary assembly points. While officially categorized as routine data verification, these actions serve as a tactic of intimidation towards neighboring states. This Belarusian leadership shows no intent to de-escalate. Instead, Minsk is increasing its military presence near the borders of Ukraine and NATO countries. This strategy aligns with Kremlin interests, using political blackmail that directly contradicts Belarusian leadership's public statements regarding peace. Ukraine continues to closely monitor Belarusian activities, reiterates its warnings to Minsk against deepening involvement in Russian aggression, and urges the international community to increase pressure on the Lukashenko regime. So it does appear that, according to the foreign minister of Ukraine, they are saying that the Belarusians are still trying to intimidate NATO and the Ukrainian state with these actions that they are conducting along the border. Although at this moment, I'd say that we'll have to wait and see if that turns into anything. It might just be a part of normal military operations around the Grodno Oblast. But moving on out of all of that, it is time for us to get on into the rest of the news that we have from around the world, from Eastern Europe, from the United States, from the Middle East, and East Asia, and also all of the news that we have left in Ukraine that we haven't been able to cover yet. But before we get on into all of that, I do have to say a huge thanks to everybody who has been watching the stream so far tonight. Over the course of an hour and 7 minutes, 64,000 people have watched this stream, and we've had a peak viewership tonight of 16,500 people, actually 16.7 thousand people at the peak. I'm gonna say that damn, honestly, like really, I gotta say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative of each and every single one of y'all for watching so far tonight, and I hope that many of y'all have continued to enjoy the channel and consider it to be its primary source, your primary source of news. We always are very honored to be able to cover this news for each and every single one of y'all every single night, and we still have a long ways to go and a lot of crazy news to cover. I mean, there's absolutely insane stuff that happened on the front lines today, and there's also been some very interesting global developments outside of Ukraine Ukraine that have happened in other corners of the world. But before we get on into all of that news, I do want to make sure that we take a brief moment to get to chit chat with a couple of y'all. And so we're going to be taking 3 questions from the chat before we get on into the rest of the news for the night. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so let's jump into our first 3 super chats of the night. And also, just a reminder, the super chatters are what keeps our live stream going every single night. We're greatly appreciative for the super chatters, and they keep us running. We are crowdfunded by the viewers, as we say. You know, I'm not sure what PBS used to say. I think they used to say we're funded by the viewers or something like that, but we try not to copy them. But we're kind of like the same thing to a certain degree, I would say. But our first super chat here goes to none other than the White Pony, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, good sir, Mr. Pony, for that $20 support. He said, Ukraine and her allies are winning this war, and Russia's in deep doo-doo. It's rapidly becoming a third world country now, and after Russia falls in 2027, how long do you think it'll take for them to recover from this debacle?
I don't really think that the Russians are ever going to recover in a meaningful way after this war. As far like, and I'm not saying though that it's going to become like a peasant-like land that lives in the Middle Ages. But what I am saying though is that the kind of economic prominence that Russia even had after the collapse of the Soviet Union, which was a shadow of its former self as the Soviet Union, it's not even going to exist in that form, really. A lot of the major industries within the Russian Federation have been destroyed for the larger part, including their semiconductors and their oil industry. And considering that most of those monolithic sorts of industries have been destroyed, and I'm also expecting that after the war, we're most likely still going to be seeing that the authoritarian sort of government structure that has existed in Russia for over 1,000 years will continue to operate just in a different form. I have a feeling that a lot of foreign investors are not going to be looking at investing in Russian industries and building them up for some sort of an economic gain, because they'll be looking at it as a possible powder keg that might go off at any moment again, especially if they have a dictatorial leadership, which they're almost guaranteed to have. And so for that reason, economically, Russia is probably going to end up becoming a backwater country for a very long period of time. They might sell oil to some of the some countries around the world still, that's largely a guarantee, but I just don't think we'll even see them return to what they have been at this moment right now. We're also probably not going to see the United States or any other Western countries try and build up the Russian economy like they did with the Marshall Plan in the aftermath of World War II with West Germany and other regions of Europe, because there really won't be the kind of political conditions inside of Russia to support that kind of a thing. Really, like to explain it the best I can with how Russia works, culturally, they lean towards authoritarian governments. Ever since the Mongol invasion of these lands back in the 1300s and the 1200s, Russia's government has been forced, due to that invasion, and since then has continued to thrive in this kind of a condition, of keeping a permanent sort of an authoritarian government in charge. Everybody puts the boot down on each other's neck on the next level down, all the way down to the level of the peasant. The only person who doesn't have a boot on their neck is generally the czar or the dictator or the quote-unquote president of Russia, whoever holds the title basically of the supreme leader of the Russian people or the Russian state. They're the only one that doesn't have a boot on their neck. But the rest of the system relies on exploitation of the people and the exploitation of the people below you to be able to make anything work. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. And considering that we've seen that the Soviet Union was completely unviable to invest in, some people actually did back in the 30s and it ended up being a disaster, and we've now seen the Russian Federation is completely unviable to invest in, a lot of investment firms are going to look at this country and they're going to go, we've seen it in multiple different iterations over the past century, and none of them have worked, and people have thrown all the money that they can to try and get a return out of their investment, and at the end of it all, the government in Russia ends up destroying those investments because of their foreign policy actions, which ends up getting crippling sanctions put on them, which completely destroys any investment or any return that could be made. So why in the world would anyone ever invest in them? And that's why I'm thinking that once the economic collapse happens in Russia, it's basically going to be like the Soviet Union. They will collapse down to a new level of middling or basically poverty, and they'll never really recover from that, much like the end of the Soviet Union. So I hope that does address that the best I can, the White Pony. Great question, by the way, and I thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I also got to say, A huge thanks to you and everybody who's been supporting this channel tonight. Like Matthew was saying, and like I have to say as well, we say it every night like a broken record. It is the folks like you who go out of their way to support this channel that make this entire thing possible and keep it running. This stream has no ads and no sponsors, which is a deliberate decision by both of us to make sure that the news is as accessible, well, I just stuttered like hell right there, as it can be to everybody who wants to hear quality news. We don't put our news behind a paywall like major mainstream news networks do, where you have to pay a monthly subscription to get to it. We want to be as free and accessible as possible because we think that a well-informed public inside the United States and inside of our allied nations is a well-discerning public that's able to make a lot better decisions and vote more accordingly with the kind of problems that we're seeing around the world and the kind of problems that we have to face and address each and every single day as a nation. And folks like you help us to be able to keep that kind of a project and that kind of news coverage on air and as readily accessible and available as to many people as will be able to listen. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again for that unbelievable and amazing support, because folks like you make this entire thing possible. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And our second super chat right here goes to none other than Old Warrior Fella. And he's a old time channel legend as well. And thank you very much, good sir, for that $20 support as well. And he said, take you on for the live chat.
And I gotta thank you incredibly for the support, Old Warrior Fella. And I gotta say, you are an old guard and a channel legend, and it's good to see you here tonight. I hope you've been doing well. And I've gotta say, we will make sure to take a live chat in your honor, and a humongous thanks to you so much once again for that amazing support, helping this channel to keep on running. And so, Matthew, what do we got for a live chat in honor of Old Warrior Fella?
And the live chat question goes to Shadow Knight, who said, could NATO have had a role in forcing Ukraine to back off and de-escalate in the stand down between Belarus and Ukraine?
Not really. NATO's power is incredibly limited. A lot of people kind of look at NATO as this larger blob that can really kind of do whatever it wants. But the reality is that the NATO charter is incredibly clear on what they can and cannot do, and there really is not a lot of pressure that NATO could put on Ukraine in any way, shape, or form, especially considering that a lot of their arms industry in Ukraine has become mostly domestic, and the Ukrainians were able to produce most of their weapon systems from the top down completely in-house. They are seeing that a lot of the influence that even Europe holds on Ukraine is beginning to diminish, because Ukraine really isn't relying on most Western countries at this point to be able to fuel their war machine to keep it running, to keep defending their nation. So I would say that NATO would probably not have a lot of an ability to pressure Ukraine in any meaningful way. Maybe some countries could say that they would stop providing arms or aid to the Ukrainians to be able to try and pressure them into not going into a conflict with Belarus, but there really wouldn't be a reason for them to do that. The Ukrainians are largely the ones, at least as far as the European mindset is concerned, that are responsible for continuing the war, and however the Ukrainians wish to continue the war and whatever strategic decisions and actions they make, most European nations take a hands-off approach where they say that's not really our call to make. The Ukrainians can do whatever they wish as long as they believe that it's strategically pertinent to their survival. Unlike the United States has been trying to get involved over the past year and a half quite heavily in telling the Ukrainians what they can and cannot do, and the last administration also did that fervently as well, telling the Ukrainians how they could and could not use U.S. weaponry in a myriad of circumstances, and the Ukrainians, in most cases, would have to require U.S. permissions to use certain weapon systems in certain ways that nowadays are looked at as normal, like the Ukrainians blowing up targets inside of Crimea or 1,200 miles inside of Russia. Back in the day, the U.S. or the Ukrainians would have to go to the U.S. and say, "Can we hit Crimea?" And depending on the ebb and flow of the White House on that day, the answer could be yes or no in either administration, and that created a whole bunch of problems for Ukraine. Nowadays, they don't have that because the Ukrainians just use their own weapons, and nobody can tell Ukraine how to use their own weapon systems because nobody really has any sort of a power to play on the Ukrainians to stop them from doing anything with their own home-built weaponry. So I would say that, in my honest opinion, I don't think NATO could make Ukraine step down, and generally the European contention would be fine with whatever they wish to do. So a big thanks to you for the support, by the way, Old Warrior Fella, in sponsoring a live chat. This is actually a very interesting question, and I've got to thank you greatly for that support and helping this channel to keep on running as well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news for the night.
And this one goes to Ghost Goblin, who put in a $17 support. And thank you, Ghost Goblin, as well, for supporting the channel, and we do appreciate that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you massively, Ghost Goblin, for that support. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support is absolutely incredible. And we thank you massively, incredibly, as a matter of fact, for helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help to keep it rolling. Folks like you, and everyone like you, who goes out of their way to support this channel, is making it a reality for millions of people every month, and we're always greatly appreciative of you helping us to keep our lights on and to pay our bills, and I'm sure that the millions of people who watch this channel every month are incredibly appreciative that y'all help us to be able to keep the show running and operating each and every day. So huge thanks to you so much once again, Ghost Goblin. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the rest of the news that we have for the night. And moving us on into Eastern Europe for a brief moment, we have been able to hear that there was apparently some sort of a action that was conducted by the Polish government, as some Polish government officials believe that the President Karol Nawrocki deliberately announced the move to strip Zelensky of the Order of the White Eagle 1 week before Donald Tusk's Ukraine Recovery Conference in Gdansk, which is formerly called Danzig, aiming to trigger tensions with Kyiv. So it actually appears that there might be some sort of spats actually going on between the president of Poland, Nawrocki, and the Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, as Nawrocki doesn't really appear to be that big in supporting Ukraine, yet Donald Tusk is largely heavily in support of Ukraine and helping them out in the current conflict. So it looks like we might be seeing some internal Polish government struggles going on here within the near future in between the Prime Minister and the President of Poland as they try and eke out who in the world is going to come out on top and whether the Ukrainians are going to be continuing to be supported. We've also been able to hear that within Romania, well, actually, I'll save that news for a minute, folks. We're actually going to move on up to Copenhagen really quickly, as we were able to see that Denmark, according to news that just came out today, will transfer 15,000 long-range artillery rounds to Ukraine after responding to Kyiv's proposals for partners to supply longer-range munitions instead of short-range ammunition. Part of the shipment has already arrived in Ukraine, with the rest expected to arrive incredibly soon. 15,000 shells is not an incredibly large amount in terms of munitions usage at the earlier part of the war, but nowadays, the Ukrainians largely use their FPV drones to supplant the artillery, including most conventional long-range artillery types, meaning that specialized artillery pieces like the Caesar, the M777, and other 155mm artillery pieces can be used to strike more dug-in targets that an FPV drone might not be able to hit and destroy. And so 15,000 shells in the modern day and age for Ukraine is actually a pretty decent amount, and quite a good thing to see that the Ukrainians are still getting their munition support from allied nations nearby to be able to continue to hit heavier defended Russian targets. And moving us on into some really interesting news today, we've been able to hear that within Romania, a wild proposition has been made. The lower house of the Romanian parliament has passed a bill on unification with Moldova. The draft authorizes the government to immediately begin negotiations with Moldova on the unification of the two countries. This is quite an interesting one, and it's not really huge news at the moment right now because this still has to pass the upper house of the Romanian parliament, and I believe it also has to get the ascension of the president of Poland, Romania as well. But this is still an interesting move, as it is suggesting that Romania may begin negotiations to absorb Moldova into the greater part of Romania. This comes with a bit of an issue. Transnistria still has several thousand Russian troops in it, and from what we know, the Russians are not really that big in support of Moldova unifying with Romania. And on top of that, the Russian forces being in Moldova inside of a internationally unrecognized territory poses another issue. How does that play into the NATO alliance? If Moldova gets absorbed into Romania, that means that all of Moldova's lands are now protected under the NATO charter because it's a part of the Republic of Romania. And so the big question becomes, what about the several thousand Russian soldiers that would now be inside of NATO territory, and what would happen as a result of that? Would the Romanians even be allowed under the NATO charter to do something like that and still be provided NATO protections? It's a really interesting question, and we're not really sure what the answer to that would be, but it still is quite an interesting one to say the least. And it now appears that we're getting some information out of the United States Congress, more so the Senate, at this moment right now. Matthew, what are we getting out of that?
So it looks like in a whopping change right here, it looks like the Senate has just changed its vote on the Iran War Powers Resolution, restricting the U.S. president from going back to war with Iran. They just changed the votes, and now it looks like the president has no restrictions whatsoever on going back to war with Iran from the looks of it. So it appears to be there was some talking going on in the back rooms, it looks like, and maybe some people are convinced to maybe change their vote. It might be in their best interest to change their vote, possibly, or something like that. We'll have to see. But it looks like some people have changed their minds from the looks of it, and the vote has now flipped.
Dang, that's wild. So it looks like we might be able to go back to war with Iran, which might be necessary at some point here in the future, but I would say that that's a little bit ridiculous. They could have just gotten the approval from the Congress anyways, even with how the vote went yesterday. But now the president doesn't even have to go through the Congress to get approval for a continuation of the conflict of Iran. Now the president can just do whatever he wants, and the Congress is going to have absolutely no say in approving or disapproving of the president's actions. So that's a little bit interesting to hear, to say the least. And speaking of the United States, there was an interesting development that happened today in the United States outside of that one. In Jacksonville, Florida today, a Freedom class littoral combat ship, the USS Indianapolis, sent 6 sailors to the hospital while pierside at the Naval Station Mayport in Jacksonville, Florida. All personnel were treated and released. This was due to a fire that occurred on board the littoral combat ship, and apparently the U.S. Navy is now investigating the cause of the fire that has now led to the wounding of several naval sailors that were on board the littoral combat ship. Station Mayport, if I'm not mistaken, let me go make sure to find it here, I believe is somewhere out, yeah, it's actually right here. Here's the Mayport Naval Station, and you can actually see a significant amount of the U.S.'s warships, including a large number of the Freedom-class littoral combat ships based out of here, including an Arleigh Burke right here. You can actually see the displacement difference between a Burke and a Freedom-class right here. It's quite large in difference. I mean, like a Freedom-class is something of a smaller ship compared to the Arleigh Burkes. But quite a lot of ships stay down here at the Mayport Naval Station. I mean, there's quite a large number of Arleigh Burkes based out of here, and generally just a large amount of naval forces. So it is really interesting. We don't know when the fire happened. We don't know if the vessel was underway at sea when the fire occurred, or the fire occurred while it was at moorings at the Naval Station Mayport. It's a little bit unclear on that at the moment from the story that we got. But it is quite an interesting occurrence, and fires are beginning to happen as something of a regular occurrence at this point on a large amount of U.S. Navy warships. Many of you will remember that the USS Gerald R. Ford just suffered a significantly damaging fire while it was on campaign in the Middle East in the war against Iran that burned out 500 berthings of the sailors on board, and apparently started from the laundry spaces on the vessel just near to the bow of the ship. We don't know where the fire was in this smaller Freedom-class LCS. These are way smaller than an aircraft carrier, and generally this fire could have happened anywhere. We're not sure where, but it is starting to show that fires are becoming a little bit common, and I have no idea why or how to even explain why that would be happening. Maybe it's deliberate. Maybe someone on board is conducting arson because they're tired of the treatment that they're getting. Maybe they're disgruntled sailors. Maybe it's mechanical issues. Maybe it's everyone's forgetting to clean out the lint from the dryers in the laundry rooms, maybe.
Yeah, I hope it's not arson or something like that. It's like, if that's arson on this one, I'm like, sounds like we got some disgruntled people in there if that's what's happening, which we don't know if that's what's happening or not. But if it's a lot of arson happening, you'll have to start bringing back the plank or something for some of these folks.
Man, you know what's interesting though? Like, I haven't heard the conclusion to this investigation, but the Navy did announce that they were investigating the Gerald R. Ford fire as a possible act of arson, because apparently there was some sort of probable cause there that led them to believe that there might have been some deliberate action taken by a sailor to set a fire in the laundry spaces. That's never been confirmed, and that was just something that they were investigating, and I don't think that we have a public conclusion to that investigation yet. But if that was an arson, like, let's just say it was an arson on board the Ford. If that was an arson on board the Ford, and now we're hearing of an arson on the Indianapolis, which is one hell of a name. If y'all don't remember, the Indianapolis was the cruiser that was sunk that carried one of the atomic bombs to, I believe it was, oh, let me see here. Where the hell was that island? I'm Tinian Island, I believe.
Bikini Atoll?
No. I think it was Tinian Island where the B-29s were at that were about to fly off to Japan and drop the atomic bombs, the Enola Gay and Bongscar. I think that's where it dropped off the bomb, and then after it sailed away, a Japanese submarine got a lucky hit on the Indianapolis, broke its back, and sank it in the middle of the Pacific. And the crew went through the harrowing journey of trying to survive in the open elements of the sea for weeks on end out there, and many of them would end up not surviving. But it kind of a wild namesake though. The Indianapolis having a fire down near Jacksonville, and if it is an arson, I think we could start to get the assumption here that whatever's going on in the Navy, there must be a lot of disgruntled sailors in the Navy if we're starting to see that bouts of arson like this are happening on more and more ships here in the modern day. And we really need to look into why are they conduct like if it was an arson, why are they conducting arsons, and what in the world could be done to avoid that? Like what kind of problems or qualms do they have to set a fire on board ship? Or if it's some other reason for the fire, why in the world are they breaking out so often these days? Like, say, from electrical wiring, and how in the world can that be fixed and avoid millions or billions of dollars in damage from these fires that are now racking U.S. warships? But moving us on out of that little bit of news in Jacksonville, as a side note, we've also been able to hear that in other maritime news, the United States Department of State today has actually condemned reported harassment of commercial vessels by the Chinese Coast Guard east of Taiwan, labeling the actions as deeply destabilizing. The State Department explicitly rejected Beijing's claims of regional authority, pledging to protect freedom of navigation and lawful maritime activity. So for now, it looks like the U.S. is still largely remaining on the side of defending Taiwan. We don't know how long that's going to last because the U.S.-China meeting made it sound like we might be willing to give up Taiwan for one reason or another. But for now, it looks like the State Department is still largely going with the tried and true foreign policy doctrine that we have of not recognizing the Republic of China as an independent country, but recognizing the sovereignty of their government on the island of Taiwan, and also condemning and also disavowing any form of forced reunification by the Communist Chinese with the island of Taiwan. So it looks like we're still working off of that for now. There hasn't been any significant foreign policy change, at least directly yet, with the Taiwan situation at play. In the meantime, in the Middle East, we've been able to hear of a couple of minor developments today. We were able to hear that apparently the explosions that were reported around Idlib was a strike against the senior ISIS leader, Ali Hussein al-Awadi, who was killed in a U.S. precision strike.
That sounds like a bastard right there. Just that name right there don't sound right. I tell you what, there's like Al Houthi. That's like the leader of the Houthi. That's a bad sign when they're named after a group like that. So I don't know. Like I have a feeling this dude right here wasn't exactly a savory fella from the sounds of it.
You know, I gotta say, man, I've heard of so many ISIS leaders getting knocked out at this point. Like, they just pick a new one after this guy gets knocked out. They put a little party hat on the new one, and they go, oh, Inshallah, you're now the new leader. It's like, man, like, they're gonna take that guy out in a couple of weeks. I think we took out one of the last ISIS leaders, like, just a couple of months ago, if I'm not mistaken, around Idlib. You know what's
Who was al-Baghdadi? Who was al-Baghdadi with?
He was like the original leader of ISIS. He was basically the guy who got the gears in motion to found ISIS and turn it into the threat that it was in the mid to late 2010s. That's who he was.
Oh, damn. Yeah. I mean, I would presume since his name was al-Baghdadi, I assume he was the daddy of Baghdad. So, apparently, remember that. I remember that whole story like it was yesterday. The whole deal about he like ran off down the tunnels or something like that. He got stuck in the corner. He sat there crying. Then they apparently the forces took him out like a dog or something like that. It's like I remember that whole thing. I'm not sure how much of that was true, but yeah, al-Baghdadi apparently met his end in a tunnel with a dog on him.
Man, well, man, his original name was just al-Baghdad. Like, he would always go around being like, my name is al-Baghdad, but you can call me al-Baghdadi. So it just kind of stuck. At least from what I heard, that's the rumors, at least. He always wanted to take over and control Baghdad, but he just never got there. He was stopped in a place called Mosul, but in Aleppo as well, which was also a big battlefield back in the day. But moving on out of that bit of news, another ISIS leader was bombed by CENTCOM, which is good news to hear. It's always good to hear about an ISIS leader getting knocked out. But I do have to say, folks, don't you find it a little bit interesting that all of these ISIS leaders are getting killed around Idlib? Like, for months now. We've heard about 8 months of, like, ISIS leaders being killed in Idlib. Don't you find that kind of odd?
Yeah, kind of odd. Like it's kind of weird because you remember when Jelani took charge of Syria after the other fellow was ousted. After Jelani took charge, there was all this talk about, oh look, there's like ISIS roaming down the highways, like all over Syria. They're setting up roadblocks. They're apparently executing some people on the streets. And this is kind of weird because it was not supposed to be a whole huge ISIS presence inside of Syria, according to the U.S. government. But it turns out that the whole place is crawling with ISIS, not just crawling with their minions, but also the leaders themselves are literally right there in one of the major cities.
But don't you find it a little bit interesting for another reason that all these ISIS leaders are getting killed around Idlib? Think for a minute, Matthew. Who else came roaring out of the hills of Idlib on a war of conquest in Syria? Who else came from there?
Tell me.
Al-Jilani. He's also from
Oh,
Idlib. That's where
well,
the
wasn't he
HT.
Al Qaeda?
Well, yeah, at the time he was Al Qaeda, and then the HTS became an offshoot of Al Qaeda. But they came from Idlib as well.
That's not shocking at all. It seems like they have a little bit of a breeding ground here going on in Idlib. It sounds like.
Yeah, because it's really interesting. I need to find you all a map of like, let me see, Syrian Civil War. Let's see, Civil War map. Let me see if I can find you all a map here of the Syrian Civil War. It's not. Let's see. We need to. No, no, no. This thing's got a whole bunch of spam deal on it. Let me see if I can find like a time lapse here of the maps. Here we are. So I need to find the one that exists right before. Okay, so let's see. All right, so here we are. This will kind of show you all a little bit. This one right here. This little area up here in dark green, that's the Syrian Salvation Government, which is the Tahrir al-Sham, which is what al-Jilani controlled. Their capital for that group and the territory they controlled was Idlib. Now, I want to put the connection out here because I think that's an important one to state. A lot of people have said in the Western world, and I think this is a lot less fervent now than it was back in the day, because we kind of entered into this with a bit of skepticism, and now we know that Jelani's a bastard. But a lot of people said that Jelani was actually very reformed. He wasn't a radical, say, Islamic terrorist leader. He was more of a reformed man. He wears suits and he thinks in abstract democratic ways for the region that are quite odd, and also for someone who created an offshoot of ISIS would be quite peculiar. But notice that the territory that all of these ISIS leaders, and I'm guessing all of the ISIS leadership is currently based out of right now, is well within the heart of the territory that he controlled for years inside of northwestern Syria. And if all of ISIS's leadership in the country is there, we would have to take the fair assumption that al-Jilani must have had a lot of contact with these guys because they're quite literally within his territory, and he probably would have had to give them permission to stay there and harbor them. So
Yeah,
that
it's
kind of
like
starts.
how is that? Yeah, how are these people staying in Idlib? Like, I would assume that since these people are from the area and they know how it works there, they're like connected with the streets inside of Idlib. So I would assume they know who's there and who isn't there. I would assume so. So it's like how are these people peacefully staying in a major Syrian city? They're not being hunted down by the government inside of Syria. They're largely just sitting there, and they're sitting there so much that the U.S. had a chance to go take them out. Apparently from an airstrike, it looks like. So yeah, it's a little bit weird with that. It's almost like they have a peace treaty with them or something.
Yeah, it is, like that's something that I have to point out because a lot of people have been saying, well, yeah, even if Jelani isn't like a reformed terrorist or something along those lines, well, at least he doesn't like ISIS because he, like the HTS fought ISIS for years. But when you think about it, though, it's like they can't be fighting ISIS. All of these people are hanging out in Idlib. The ISIS senior leadership is in Idlib. They've been there forever. I mean, the U.S. has been airstriking ISIS leadership around there for the past 8 months. We've heard of several of their leaders that have been replacing the dead ones getting knocked out in that same city for 8 months now. If that's the case, Jelani had to have been in fairly decent relations with these people, allowing them inside of his territory of the HTS, and also on top of that, that also ought to be giving us a little bit of an idea of the motives as to why the army of the Syrian interim government, now under control of Jelani, was marching into SDF controlled territory in the north and just releasing ISIS prisoners by the thousands into the wild. It might be that Jelani and his government is very sympathetic to that kind of radical ideology and terrorism, considering that the leader of Syria right now has generally also been born from that very same ilk of the radical extremism in the Middle East. So I wanted to make sure to point this one out today and make sure to connect the dots on this, because I'm telling y'all, I don't really have a lot of faith or trust in this Jelani guy. Ever since he's come into charge, he's been conducting violent repressions against the Syrian people that are not the majority of the population in the thousands. We've seen that nowhere has been free from the bloodshed of Jelani's men and his government. And I think that we're probably going to be seeing that he might actually be supportive of this sort of a rise of radical terrorism within the region once more. And I think there needs to be a lot more concern put into that, because we could see the U.S. forces have to get tied up in counterterrorism operations for years if they help to spurn or kindle the development of ISIS once more inside of Syrian territory. But moving us on out of that, we've also been able to hear that the Iranians are getting unhappy with the U.S.'s doublespeak, as the Iranian Foreign Ministry has said that contradictory U.S. statements on the MOU to end the war will not help in reducing Iranians' mistrust. So it appears that at the moment, the Iranians are saying that the doublespeak by the president and other members of the government here in the United States aren't really doing a lot to help them to iron out the surrender deal for the United States. In the meantime, we've also been able to hear that Iran is expanding its oil production while the 60-day waiver is in place, and have apparently floated out the 6,200-ton Rashadat platform in the Rashadat oil field, which apparently was just installed and has been put back into operation to be able to pump out as much oil as possible and ship it out to be able to make some cash.
We also cannot show that video, by the way.
Damn. I was about to show it. Like, man, moving us on from that and into Bandar Abbas, there were also some random explosions that happened in the city today. No cause was given, and there's been no reports of casualties, so we don't really know what that was about, but a very interesting occurrence, to say the least. Outside of that, the Middle East has actually been fairly quiet today, and not really a lot exciting has been going on down here, so, it's kind of rare these days. Moving us on out of the Middle East, it's now time for us to get on back up into Ukraine and to cover all of the news that we've been able to get out of this war today. We've been getting quite a lot, as a matter of fact, and moving us on and into our the border regions near to the Russian Federation, we were able to see that apparently some Russian forces were hit by the 68th Jaeger Brigade in the Kursk direction today. This is also showing that the 68th Jaeger Brigade has apparently been moved off the Pokrovsk front, where they've been seen for quite a while, and has been moved towards the Kursk border region. When you see them hitting the supply lines right here, hopefully it.
Looks like they're giving them a Jägermeister.
Ah, man, you always say it.
They're giving them that German spice digestive liqueur, whatever the hell that means.
Man, I honestly, folks, don't even know what the hell a Jägermeister would even taste like.
I was reading about it here because when I pulled it up, I was trying to find out what a Jägermeister. It's a German herbal liqueur made from a secret recipe of 56 herbs, spices, and fruits. It almost sounds like the liquor
Kentucky Fried
equivalent of like a
Chicken.
KFC chicken box or something. It really does sound like it. They added a hell of a lot more than the 11 herbs and spices. They added 56 on this thing, so it's a lot more spicy.
Man, man, you do not want to hear who was a big fan of Jägermeister in the Second World War. Yeah, like you do not. Like there was a guy who was a huge fan of Jägermeister. He was the big fat guy in charge of the Luftwaffe during the Second World War. You know what I'm talking about? Goering?
Oh yeah, I know who that is.
He was a big fan. So instead of having Colonel Sanders' 11 herbs and spices, apparently you have Colonel Garrick's 56 herbs and spices. Well, quite an interesting blend here. But anyways, moving us on from that and on down and into the area of the location unknowns, we've also been able to see some Russian forces getting cooked here. This is actually the photo shoot that we used for the thumbnail that was made by the 23rd Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, conducting a MLRS rocket barrage against Russian forces, which was a really cool photo shoot. I'm not going to lie. It looked really good. And so we put it in the thumbnail because it's just baller like that. We also were able to see in other news that the Russian casualty report came out today, and it was looking quite good. Oh, 4 Bobcats.
Oh, man. 4 Bobcats today. Honestly, the Bobcats are sort of paling in comparison to these other losses. Well, I mean, how are they losing hundreds and hundreds of vehicles a day, and there's like, they just keep trucking like it's nothing?
I don't even know. I think at some point they're just going to have to run out. I mean, like, they can't keep this up forever. But according to Vistis and Keep the Records, 430 vehicles and fuel tanks is the 11th highest daily loss. The June total is now over 10,000. We're not even close to the end of the month yet. We still got about a week to go, and they've already lost 10,000 supply trucks and vehicles in 1 month really 23 days more so. 7 ground robotic complexes is also tied for the 9th highest day, which is not shown on the Kyiv Independence infographic, unfortunately. But over the past 24 hours, we have been able to see that 1,260 Russian troops have been wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 4 APCs, 430 supply trucks, 6 main battle tanks, 60 artillery pieces, 1,873 drones, 2 MLRSs, 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 4 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, a pretty good day and a wonderful thing to see. And moving us on out of that location unknown news, it's now time for us to make it on into the frontline areas. But before we make it into the frontline areas, we do have to talk about the highway supply lines, the M14 and the E105 in the land bridge area of Ukraine. We have seen that more footage has come out today, once again showing that more supply trucks are continuing to be hit and destroyed along the E105 highway, attempting to head down to Crimea. Oh, and there's actually music. I heard that right there too. It just kind of blipped in. Oh my God, there's like a fire that happened out here as well. Jesus, boy. Man, that's crazy. We also were able to see another clip here.
Oh, suka, блядь. Bro, is that like the same truck before it really burned all the way down? It looks like the early stage before it burned.
Yeah, I think this was when it was cooking to a crisp, actually. I think this was earlier in the day.
That's crazy. It was actually a nice truck before it got crispy.
Man, it's kind of high-end looking. Shame it got burned. Man, what a shame.
Oh, look, they got a stupid little ribbon right here for the Russian forces right there.
Oh, that's the ribbon of St. George, you know?
They're using that for the war now.
Oh, they love the war. They support it, Bled. But they just don't like it when they lose, Bled. That's the one part they don't like too much. Out in the Black Sea area, we also get to see that 3 unmanned boat systems were also destroyed by the Ukrainian Navy today. Take a little look. Here's one of the Russian unmanned boats. They obliterated it. Here's a second one. Right there. They're also going to blow that one to pieces. There's the third bleed. Well, nice to see, and it does appear that the Russians are actually using their own unmanned boats at this point as well, which is a very interesting thing to notice, folks. Very interesting. We don't know how many of those the Russians have and what they're trying to use them for, but it certainly does look like, at least for now, the Russians are trying to get them towards Odessa for some reason. Moving us on out of that, we've also been able to hear along the frontline areas near to Severodonetsk and Lysychansk that the drones are continuing to knock out more supplies within the area, including this truck.
How's it feel to lose everything like this? I wonder how it feels for the Russians just to send stuff in and get it back. Like you know how they used to on the cartoons they'd have like a chop of mutton or something like that, and they would dip it down to like a dark cave or something like that, and you'd hear a bunch of gnawing sounds, and then pull the bone back up, and it would just be just the bone left on it. That's basically what's happened to the Russian supply trucks. They put the mutton into the front lines. It comes back just the bone.
Man, honestly, it really is how they're doing it. I mean, look, even the gas stations are getting cooked out here.
I have a little collision right here, too, to add to it.
Meanwhile, they got the beeper going off in there. That's like the life alert. Like the beep, beep.
A beeper.
Legalized comedy. But man. Oh, man, I tell you, those supply trucks, they're getting hit so badly the Russians can't even recover them at this point. And the front lines aren't really looking that much better either. In the Lyman direction, the Ukrainian 66th Mechanized Brigade was able to target and destroy Russian fiber optic drones and quite a wide variety of Russian forces in the area today. But more importantly, these fiber optics, which the Ukrainians were shadowing and prepping to strike, like this one, which they just destroyed. And there it goes. It's gone. It was that easy. I also see them blowing up another one. Trying to make sure they line up just right on it, too.
Hey, yo, what the hell's the name on this drone, though?
Excuse you? I don't think that has any relation to anything.
I hope not.
I don't think Mustache Man was called a nuke. I don't think he ever had a name like that.
Man, I just see the ADOLF and I get a little bit concerned. I see this. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. That's all.
You know, you must really hate your kid, you know, if you ever have a kid in the modern day and you name him Adolf, you gotta hate him. Like, nobody names their kid that anymore. I mean, that's a very unpopular name because of, you know, that one guy who had the name. We also were able to see that down in the Seversk direction, there was also some Russian forces that were hit by the 81st Air Mobile Brigade today, also using their drone forces. Once again, Russia's just in the wide open fields. I don't know why the Russians walk around in wide open fields, knowing how much of a death sentence that is. But yet, nevertheless, the Ukrainians are catching them out there in the hundreds every day. And also catching them in their outposts as well. And also hitting what appears to be a shed tank. Also another Russian that's hiding in the trees. He's about to get his, and he did. And would you look at that? They're just obliterating them left and right. What a doubly.
They really have a way with the bomblet.
They do. It's a special skill that they have. Really something. Oh, look, they found a Russian
As
supply
the
cache.
as the Ukrainians always said, you have to have sauce, but you don't want to get lost in the sauce.
Mm-hmm. Amen. We also got to see the Ukrainians destroying some of the Russian drone launchers near to the abandoned Donetsk airport. We can actually see the drone launching sheds here at the Donetsk airport, and the Ukrainians are going to start knocking a couple of these out. The Donetsk airport, which was largely destroyed in 2014, has actually been used significantly by Russian forces in the present day to launch drones out of these small sheds that they've set up on the tarmac area and then using the runway as a long enough road strip to be able to launch the drones off the top of the vehicles. The Ukrainians actually went after that today and targeted a couple of the sheds, but didn't knock out all of them, meaning that some of the drone launching capacity of that airport has been reduced. We also were able to see some FPV strikes that were conducted on the Russians in the Donetsk area here as well. Let's take a gander. Looks like they're driving in an old Lada. Oh!
Oh!
FYI.
How the hell did it survive?
I don't think it did. That hissing noise coming from the engine, I think that kind of sealed the deal. This thing is done for. I don't know how they made it out, though. I mean, that is quite wild. We also got this clip here. Take a look at this one. Oh, there's a... Sounds like they're panicking. Oh!
Oh! Oh, damn.
Oh,
The mix jump. Oh, he's screwed now.
why did this guy slow down? Man, crazy.
He's trying to find the man. He was trying to find the gear the whole time. I think he's sitting there like trying to find like fourth gear or something. He's in there just like he was just basically coasting for a solid minute.
Man, that guy in the back said, "Get out of here, Billy!" And the driver went, "Oh, hey, sorry, wrong gear." Man, like he's like trying to find the gear. It's like, man, that's not what you want to be trying to do in the middle of being attacked by a Ukrainian drone. We also got to see the 7th Air Assault Corps also striking Russian targets deep in the rear line areas near to the Bakrovsk front, in between Bakrovsk and Donetsk. Here you see the Ukrainians showing off a great deal of stats.
Oh, damn. They got all the schematics for the thing. They're flashing the secrets here.
Man, they said, here's all the secret sauce. They just hit us with it in like 5 seconds. Would you look at that? Man, these are, you know, these are like those little stubby Shahed ripoffs that we saw over in Moscow. You know, the Molnius?
Yeah, it kind of does look like it actually. They're using like the balsa wood like style propeller in the back. Oh, look, it's like rocket assisted too.
Yeah, that's really wild. I didn't know they were rocket-assisted takeoffs, but you see them now hitting little supply hubs in the rear line areas. There goes another one of them. That's crazy. They launch just like a Shahed, because you know the Shaheds, like the ones from Iran at least, they actually use the rocket-assisted takeoffs as well.
It's a lot more advanced than Russia using a pickup truck to like speed it down a runway. It's a lot more advanced than that, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree. Honestly, I think this is probably a little bit easier, probably a little bit more expensive though. I mean, they're really putting these things to work. I wonder how many of these they actually have at this point, because we don't see them often, mind you all. Like, we don't see Shahed ripoffs on the Ukrainian side commonly. So it really begs the question how many of these they have and what do they target with them? Because it seems like they're kind of like sparsing through their targets very selectively to figure out what they're going to hit with them. But moving us on from that and on down to the Zaporizhia front, we also got to see a very rare clip today of Ukrainian GUR operators actually targeting and attacking Russian logistics and artillery in the rear line areas in Zaporizhia from this month. This is very rare footage to see ground operatives like this anymore. Usually it's all done by drones. So here's the clip. Oh, we're going to have to mute it because they put in rock music. But we see them throwing in a grenade into a dugout, going into their own bunker, now clearing other ones, moving on through. There's a diesel generator right there. Now walking through the open, which is usually pretty dangerous. And now they're in a tree line looking around, surveilling the area. We now see the drones targeting and destroying a lot of the Russian forces in the area. Pretty wild to see. It looks like the special forces moved into the rear line areas and actually largely conducted reconnaissance for the drones to be able to hit the targets that followed, from what we can tell. Pretty interesting. We actually have heard, and I've heard a lot of reports, that Ukrainian special forces teams, and especially sniper teams, no longer really do any sniping. They're more so reconnaissance units at this point, like two-man reconnaissance units that can go out and conduct reconnaissance on things that drones might not be able to see all too well. And I have to say that that's quite an interesting sort of a thing to watch, how much Ukrainian special forces and also sniper teams have evolved over the war from actually being sniper and SOF teams at the start to largely being advanced reconnaissance units in the modern day and age. We also were able to see the Ronin unit here in the southern direction also targeting and hitting more Russian supply trucks, including this poor Bahanka, which actually looked to have actually missed. The
Oh,
rest of
man,
them
that one
did.
didn't miss. Yeah, it looks like everybody else is getting a smacking.
Man, everybody else is getting a spanking, Blid. Oh, Blid.
Oh, he was running like Scooby Doo, and they just solved the mystery from that truck.
Like, Zoink Scoop, we gotta get out of here. Ruh, Raggy. Man, man, I tell you, I don't, man, I gotta say, I don't know how the Russians can survive logistically under this kind of strain.
I don't think it's going to last much longer. Like, we got to start seeing something. Also, by the way, we got to remember if the Russians are starving, the first we'll ever hear about it is maybe like a Russian like mill blogger saying something like, "Our guys are getting a little bit hungry out there." It's like once we hear that, we'll oh, okay, it's caught up to them, definitely.
Man, those boys are hungry. We also got to see some glide bombs hitting Russian positions here in the Zaporizhia front today as well. There goes the first one. There goes the second. I don't
Wow,
know
is that
what.
the first time they've used these glide bombs?
I think these are the cabs. We've seen them used very rarely before, but this is one of the a few times we've ever seen them used recently.
Yeah, I was about to say I've never really seen this hardly ever. Yeah, I think that is the new cab actually.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff, honestly, to see them at in work. They have quite a lot of explosives on those bombs as well, and they look quite precise. Actually, it looks like they can hit their target probably with a margin error of just a few feet. Meanwhile, down to the Kherson area, we also were able to see more Russian boats and unmanned ground vehicles being hit and destroyed by the Ukrainian Marines and other forces that are still patrolling the Dnipro River. And good golly, they're toasting them, boy.
It looks like it fixes in on these radios right here.
Man, the fix really is in. It looks like they're done for, Bliet. But without further ado, folks, it's now time for us to move on up into Kyiv. And it's a good thing that we kind of rounded out the news segment a little bit early tonight because we actually have some very big news coming from the president of Ukraine. Because he put out a 9-minute speech today. It's quite lengthy, but it is a very important speech. You know, whenever Zelensky gives a long speech, it's going to be very important. So, without further ado, here is the speech. Bitch!
Шановні українці, українки, довгий сьогодні день, багато нарад з нашими військовими. Я вдячний усім підрозділам Збройних сил України та інших складових наших сил оборони України, Служба безпеки України, наші розвідки, Національна гвардія України, Національна поліція, наші прикордонники. Кожен день є у нас необхідні результати для України. І саме такі, як це визначено нашими стратегічними завданнями. Ми продовжуємо відповідати на російські удари по наших містах і селах. Тільки за цю добу росіяни били по Сумщині, Харківщині, Полтавщині, по Херсону. Дуже цинічний удар був по місту Запоріжжя. Були російські удари також по Донеччині, також по нашій Харківщині. Така російська жорстокість і агресія є першопричиною війни. І важливо, щоб росіяни відчували, що ця війна є. І є саме через них. Перше, є дуже відчутні втрати окупанта на нашій землі, яка зараз під російським прапором. Російська воєнна логістика на тимчасово окупованій території України і саме перебування окупантів там надзвичайно ускладнені. Це правильний сигнал Росії. Сигнал, що точно не вийде у Росії безкарно та легко вкрасти землю українського народу та будь-якого іншого народу з тих, кому російські амбіції зараз загрожують. Сучасні технології роблять окупацію надто важкою для окупанта і, можливо, найважчою, ніж було в усі часи. Україна буде посилювати нашу технологічну базу і надалі. Я дякую всім розробникам і всім нашим виробникам. Росія вже не вперше окуповує чужі землі. Російська держава складається з багатьох підкорених народів і з вкрадених земель. Ми за свою землю боремось. Ми боремось за своїх людей. Ми боремось за справедливість для України. Наші люди на тимчасово окупованій території, думаю, вірно все розуміють. На півдні нашої країни, в Криму, на Донеччині та Луганщині ми не дозволяємо Росії використовувати нашу землю як інструмент затягування війни і на перетворення окупації на безкінечну. Наша операція, зокрема щодо Криму, чітко прорахована. І те, як операція триває, абсолютно доводить. Якщо саме те, про що ми говорили з партнерами в рамках G7, у України з'явиться, і це залежить від рішення партнерів. Ми оперативно забезпечимо умови, коли Росія буде змушена обрати мир. Дуже розраховуємо на позитивну відповідь від наших партнерів. Вони чітко знають, про що йдеться. Зараз наші військові вибивають на тимчасово окупованій землі України і на території самої Росії те, що працює на російську війну. Те, що робить цю війну і російську агресивність взагалі можливими. Сьогодні була доповідь керівника ГУРМО, зокрема за результатами наших далекобійних санкцій середньої дальності. Розвідка здобула деякі внутрішні російські документи з реальною оцінкою того, що відбувається. І це оцінка самого окупанта. Наш план тиску болісно сприймається російським керівництвом. Ми досягаємо арсеналів. Поблизу Петербурга знищено значну кількість боєприпасів Балтійського флоту. Були подібні ураження і на інших напрямках. Ми досягаємо військових виробництв, як виробництво критичних компонентів для ракет у Воронежі. І саме тих ракет, якими росіяни б'ють по наших містах, по наших селах, по нашій енергетиці, по нашому життю. Або ще одна ціль, уражена ціль, завод в Чебоксарах, по якому відпрацювали ракети «Фламінго». Ми досягаємо все більше російську воєнну логістику. Також підтверджені ураження газових об'єктів в Оренбурзькому регіоні. Це понад 1200 кілометрів від фронту. Також і багато нафтових об'єктів по всій території Росії. Уражені і центри зв'язку російської армії, які стратегічно важливі для них і застосовуються в ударах проти України та в російських погрозах світу. Наказав нашій розвідці і армії працювати на випередження по тих об'єктах, які росіяни використовують для масштабування війни. Зараз російське керівництво тягне під Москву на Валдай та під Путінський міст через Керченську протоку більше ППО за рахунок ППО на інших напрямках. Тільки на московський регіон вони стягнули сотні пускових для систем С-400, С-500 та панцирів. На Валдай стягнули з інших регіонів Росії майже 90 пускових ППО. Там ще формується спеціальна дивізія ППО, щоб берегти спокій російського керівництва. Для порівняння, на усіх інших напрямках в Росії, на інші їхні міста зараз по кілька пускових. Такі пріоритети. Захищають свою владу, захищають джерело цієї війни. Вже у більш ніж 60 російських регіонах є дефіцит пального. Є також сильне зростання цін на бензин, цін на дизель, якщо вони, звісно, в наявності є. Російські спецслужби вже навіть пропонують перенести або взагалі скасувати ритуал обрання Єдиної Росії в Держдуму. Їхня чергова імітація виборів була запланована на вересень. І зараз ми бачимо по доповідях розвідки, що в Росії не впевнені в процесах на вересень. Багато складнощів. І тільки через те, що Путін відмовляється закінчувати свою війну і не чує наших пропозицій зустрічі, пропозицій реальних перемовин і достойного миру. Треба гарантувати мир. Це найголовніше завдання. Сьогодні була доповідь головнокомандувача Збройних сил, зокрема про наші активні дії на фронті. Я дякую ДШВ, усім підрозділам, також 100-й окремій механізованій бригаді. Затвердив наші подальші активності. Обговорили з командою і подальшу підготовку Drone Deals з нашими партнерами та реалізацію вже досягнутих домовленостей. Обсяги виробництва дронів мають збільшуватись. Україна ніколи не хотіла війни. Всі це знають. Від першого дня війни ми хочемо миру. Ми хочемо справедливості для України. Ми хочемо гарантованої безпеки. Російське керівництво знає, що достойний мир можливий. Знає, що окупація не може бути легалізована. Знає, що чим довше війна, тим складніше розібратись з її наслідками. Треба, щоб Росія пішла на мир. Інструменти для цього є. Я дякую всім, хто допомагає. Я дякую кожному і кожній в наших силах оборони і безпеки України, хто б'ється заради нашої держави, хто працює на оборону, хто гарантує нам влучність. Слава Україні!
Heroam Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1,582 of the news from around the world. And it's time for us, folks, to move on into the second segment where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And I have a feeling that tonight, folks, we're going to be having an absolute blast. We've had quite a decent amount of news to cover today, and over the course of the 2 hours of news that we've covered, 92,000 people have watched this stream. That's quite a lot of people. And at the peak tonight, we had 17.7, well, let me make sure, 16.7 thousand people here, not 17.7. But nevertheless, we are entirely honored and greatly appreciative of each and every single one of y'all being here and enjoying the show over the course of the night. We always love to know that we get to tell the news to all of y'all, and hopefully we've been able to do honor by all of y'all once again by making sure that our news is well informed, well researched, and our analysis is hopefully top notch as usual. I also got to say a humongous thanks to everybody who continues to watch this show from the present day, because as many of y'all will know, the Enforcer channel continues to remain in the top 30 in America on the charts. Not that the ratings really matter, because we were doing this before we were ever in the top 100, but it is crazy to know that so many of y'all continue to enjoy the channel day in and day out, that we're usually in the top 30s or even higher than that most days. And so...
Who the heck beat us?
Oh, let's see here. This guy did, and then CBS Sports beat us because of the World Cup. That's actually quite rare. They usually never beat us. And let's see here. Who else? The Pat McAfee show. Ryan Hall, obviously, because Ryan Hall is Ryan Hall. He's like a
That's
legend.
the weatherman.
Yeah, I mean, he's a legend, so, obviously he's going to beat us. And then... yeah,
Doggy. Bro, we got beat by
Doggy.
Doggy. Man, Doggy, man. We got beat by Doggy. What the hell is that?
Man, then we got beat by that radio show. Man, like, I don't even know what that is.
Man, whatever the hell Doggy's doing, they're apparently doing it right. They're getting like 400. They're getting almost 1 million views on whatever they're doing.
Man, and then their tag is just hashtag doggy. Man, hashtag GD. Man, like, I don't understand. But whatever they doing, they doing.
GD.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean. Like,
Yeah,
I don't even,
really. Damn. That can mean if they're American, that could mean something possibly not so savory. Possibly.
man,
I'm not sure what that means really.
man, they said hashtag doggy, hashtag yeah. Oh man, but still, I gotta say, we're absolutely honored to be that high up in the ratings. We thank y'all so much for watching once again, and we hope y'all do stick around through the question segment. It's gonna be an absolute blast. And so, without further ado, Matthew, what do we got here?
All right, so moving on to our super chat questions, our live chat questions, and our Morse code decoders of the night. It's time to get started. Also, by the way, apparently it looks like that attack did conclude earlier that Ukraine was conducting on Russia. Not seeing anything else about it, by the way, but also since everybody's asking about it, Venezuela got hit by a monumental earthquake, apparently near their capital, apparently just like a few hours ago. It was apparently, I think they're saying 2 major earthquakes actually. So I saw videos earlier of buildings collapsing, literally crumbling to the ground, entire blocks of buildings. They think that the casualties are in the thousands. So it looks like it's a pretty bad one. I saw the president just put out a post saying that they're willing to send U.S. aid down there and instruct the government to help them out. Apparently, they're saying the early reports aren't good. I think the magnitude was like a 7 or an 8 or something. It was a pretty large one. But then again, the buildings in Caracas and stuff, I mean, it's not like they're made out of like the best materials or something. It's a pretty poor country. But how large was the earthquake?
I don't know. I can't find, like, it looks like according to this one post, it was a 7.1 on the Richter scale. So that's way up there. I mean, that's getting on into some of the larger earthquakes out there, and it looks to have been somewhere in between Barquisimeto and Valencia, from what I can tell. So it would be somewhere. Actually, it's right there. That's exact. I was about to say near San Felipe. It actually is right here. Oh man, that's a huge area.
Oh, oh
It was a
wow.
seven
And
point
what's
five.
that? Oh, wow, that's serious right there. That literally affected the entire area. So it barely got Caracas. It got everything else though. But yeah, that's pretty bad right there. I saw that. Have you seen the videos out of that? We can't show the videos, I don't think. But have you seen some of them?
I haven't really seen a lot of them today. I've actually been watching more about what's here locally, like the Cottonwood Fire and the Iron Fire and stuff. I've been seeing that all day, but I haven't seen much about this earthquake.
Yeah, it's ugly, very ugly down there. I saw people running through the airports too. The airports were like crumbling.
Man, that's wild. I mean, especially the afflicted area. I mean, look at that. That's it's like a tenth or an eighth of the whole country down there that's been hit by this earthquake. Pretty
Yeah.
bad. And it also hit most of the major cities along the coast too.
I guess we'll have to send the U.S. military down there to go and like make sure that they're safe now that this has happened. So yeah, I guess we'll have to send the military.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe we might, but it's fortunate, definitely to say the least. Some of y'all might not be hearing about this at the moment. Maybe some of y'all are because it seems like it's hitting national news circles at this point. But there's a huge fire going on down in South Utah called the Cottonwood Fire, and to show y'all the spread of the smoke, that's the smoke spread right now of this thing. It's literally covering the
Oh,
whole. Like we're actually in it. Like we're actually in this thing. Like the smoke we're seeing over the
oh
city
hell
is
yeah,
from
we're
the
in it.
Cottonwood Fire.
Yeah, I walk outside and I feel like I'm suffocating around here these days. Honestly, that smoke around here is getting awful. Like it's getting really bad. Like I can't even go outside. Like if you go outside right now and stand out there, it's like the equivalent of smoking a pack of Marlboros or something. So I just haven't been going outside, and I've been like cooped up thinking, dang, I got to get back outside eventually. But I'm not sure when that smoke's going to clear out.
Yeah, I mean it's bad, folks. Today, like the sky was literally like orange, like hell. I don't know if you saw that later on in the day, Matthew. But do you see when it turned like orangish gray?
Yeah, I honestly, man, I don't even look outside. I'm scared to even look out the window.
Nah, I mean it's wild, but this Cottonwood Fire, folks, is unbelievable. Like it's past that corny joke. The Cottonwood Fire is
Hey,
unbelievable.
man, chill out, man.
Yeah, I mean,
You
like
put in some corny jokes. You come on.
man, I mean, like like man, I'm just saying, like man, like I ain't trying to say nothing. I'm just saying. But beyond that, though, I think this thing has eaten up like 30,000 acres in 3 days. It's an unreal fire, like how fast this is growing. I think it's eaten up everything down here. It doesn't really show the fire area even at this point. It just shows the Cottonwood fire, unlike the Iron Fire and the Bonneville fire, which it actually shows on the map. And luckily, the Bonneville fire, which is the one that Matthew filmed down near downtown near UVU, that one's pretty much contained completely at this point. So that one's not really posing that much of a problem.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it just burned up the side of a whole mountain. The Iron Fire, though, is still
Everybody
going crazy.
everybody around here, like in every like area of Salt Lake City, the suburbs, and everywhere, everybody's up in arms saying, "Ban the fireworks, ban them!" And like some of these municipalities around here are like, "Look, we can't just like totally ban all the fireworks. It's not in our purview to do that unless it's like a critical risk zone or something like that." But everywhere around Salt Lake City that can ban fireworks is pretty much ban them at this point, which is smart, by the way. I know people want to celebrate the 4th of July, but also we want to be able to live and not, burn up in a fire too. So it's probably better not to shoot off the fireworks. So hopefully they just like ban the sale of them for the most part, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with how dry the state is, it's a bad idea to really allow fireworks to be fired off in the state. Because from what we've heard, fireworks may have started. I think one of the fires. I think they said that maybe the Bonneville fire might have been started by a firework. Or something else along those lines. Basically, just negligence is what started it, and that's possible. It's like with the risk that's inherent out here, with how dry the environment is and how it literally lights up like kindling. It might not be a good idea to have people, shooting off fireworks, which could set the whole city on fire or the whole state on fire. Because hell, I mean, it like let me see if I can pull up some pictures of this Cottonwood fire for y'all folks because they're unbelievable. Let's see, Cottonwood fire. So let me see here if I got. Yeah, so
Also,
hmm?
Also, Kyle said in the live chat said it's probably why he had a migraine last night. I actually have an air purifier in here, like a whole house air purifier thing that sits behind me. I got it when I first moved out here because I heard about the dust coming off the lake. I was like, I don't want to breathe in like all the like arsenic and stuff like that come off the lake in case it like dusts up or something like that. So I got one. So I'm sitting inside here with like perfectly nice clean air in here, just like luxury air. And meanwhile, if I walk outside, it's like walking into the smoker's den or something at this point.
Man, I mean, it's insane, like how bad it is outside right now. Like you can smell the wood burning smell in the air all the way from Cottonwood fire, which is like 150 miles away. But to give you all an idea of what it looks like, this is what it looked like today, recently, like that fire down there.
It looks like a nuke.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like the smoke plume is so thick and strong from this thing. Let me see here. Let me close this one down to show y'all again on the map. The smoke is so thick that the same kind of smoke we're being affected with in Salt Lake City is affecting Denver and Colorado Springs, which is about 400 miles east. As a matter of fact, the farthest east it goes is over Oklahoma City. They're affected with the same smoke from the fire that we are in Salt Lake, and in a straight line from the fire to Oklahoma City, that's 850 miles away, to give you all an idea of the amount of trees and foliage that's being burned in this fire right now for the smoke to be that thick and reach that far away. You can actually see some of the smoke even out in Arkansas and Louisiana for the most part. It's made it almost to the Mississippi River.
Yeah, really, honestly. I feel like these days you could charge for clean air. Like I just put that as a joke in the live chat. I said clean air at Mass Place, $5 for 10 minutes. I feel like you could. Like one of these days, with how polluted like the country's getting. Now, obviously, fires happen every year. Like that's not something that's unusual. Like out here in the West where it's dry. But with like all the pollution from the data centers and stuff like that, the smoke and the fires, the oil pollutants and everything. Eventually, you'll be able to sell it. Like you can sell people clean air or like a subscription fee to have them breathe the clean oxygen and nitrogen.
Honestly, man, that's such a good idea. You know what? We got to have a billionaire like start advocating for that and wear a hat that says "America Clean Air" on it or something. Really something insulting. To really get it across that they're all for it and they love America. Like maybe a Canadian billionaire or a multimillionaire could do that one. What do you think about that? I think that'd be a great idea.
Oh yeah, someone's gonna do it eventually. Everybody these days, like people create problems to solve them. These days, like they literally create the problem, which is like very dirty and underhanded to say the least. But they do that with literally everything now. Like they'll create the disease, then they'll create the cure. It's like what the hell? It's like this is a little bit like sickening, isn't it? But that's what they do with everything these days. So yeah, hopefully the fires get put out here. But yeah, it feels like the whole state's kind of on fire right now.
Man, before long, you're going to hear, hey guys, this is the toxic chemicals company that poured toxic chemicals in your lake. that's giving you cancer. So we created this cancer treatment in the same company for that very kind of affliction. It only costs $500,000 for the treatment over 10 years. And you can pay it in 20 monthly installments. Like, it's like, go ahead and sign up. That's definitely coming around. Like, no joke, that's probably what someone's going to be trying to do at some point in the future. And they're going to talk about they're doing it to give back to the community and shit. All the corporate buzzwords that they can think of to make it sound like they care. But still, it's a really unfortunate thing going on here in Utah right now with this fire. And also on top of that, how tall are these mountains? Because I think these mountains have been like consumed in the fire as well. Let me see if I can go pull up. Let's see, a Cottonwood fire map. Let me see if I can find one of those. So this website called Watch Duty has it. Let me see if I can. Jeez, man. Oh my God, it's eaten 62,000 acres as of right now.
Damn.
Dang,
I
man.
know, I know how many bear, or like how many wildlife refugees are going to be out here. Like the bears. It's like, what happens when this fire rages through an area like this? It's like, where do the bears, the mountain lions, and everything else go? It's like, are they going to like go and invade the next nearby city or something? It's like, what are they going to do?
Oh, usually they just burn to death and die. They can't run out from the fire. The
What?
fire usually moves faster than they can.
They could probably move out. Like if they see it coming, they could probably like leave or something.
No, I mean, like, really, like, a lot of animals don't have the stamina, and these fires sometimes can move at 60 miles an hour. That's why a lot of
Ah,
people end up getting consumed and burned to death in them, like in California, is because it's like 2 miles down the road, and they're like, that's not that far away. And then a gust hits it, and it moves down the road at 60 miles an hour over the next 5 minutes, and they're literally miles behind the barrier of the fire, and they burn to death. So they either run until they drop dead and get burned, or they get lucky, with a very few of them that do, and they actually get to outrun it. But most of them will just burn to death. But from what we can see, it's south of
damn.
Delano Peak, which would be down here. So it's burned everything down here, all the way to Highway 89, apparently.
That's bad. And
What
it
is?
looks like it might spread too.
Oh, dang! And this was a beautiful part of the state too. I mean, look at that, like Mount Baldy and stuff down here. It's burning everything south of this. That's unfortunate. This looks a lot like the Cottonwood Canyon area, sort of. Damn, that's unfortunate. I hate to see that kind of stuff happen. When we were
I
on the
heard I heard they arrested some idiot out here somewhere when some fire got started. I can't remember exactly what location it was, but they arrested somebody on suspicion of possibly starting it. I've heard a lot of people speculating that maybe there's like an arsonist running around or something starting the fires. I don't know. Like this is our first year out here in Utah, so we don't know how severe this is compared to prior years for fires. But I will say, just from a kind of like common sense perspective, it seems a little bit strange that like fires are starting literally all over the place. I get the fact it's a red flag warning and it's like severe conditions, but it's like this many fires starting in this small of a like time period seems a little bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, it's really something. Honestly, man, it's kind of a lot like those California wildfires that happened a while ago because the eucalyptus tree started to spontaneously combust, and also a whole bunch of other things to happen as well. Interestingly enough, folks, Pacific Gas and Electric actually was found to be the cause of one of the large wildfires that happened years ago out there. It was like something happened and like a wire landed on the ground and it caught something on fire and then it turned into a humongous wildfire. So it's basically just like some random incident that happened and it turned into a huge deal. But it's crazy, especially out here in these dry, arid kind of environments. These fires go wild. Like, that's one thing we never dealt with in Alabama. That's one thing I will say that Alabama kind of has as a plus over Utah for the nature-wise things. If there ever was a fire in Alabama, they maybe burned to 800 acres or 1,000 at their biggest, and that was big enough to make state news. But they never get really big like these are out here right now because of the dryness of the place.
Yeah, I just hope they put it out soon.
Yeah, I hope. I think that one down there in the south is so big they can't put it out anymore. They just have to hope that it goes out on its own. But the ones around the city, I hear that they're still trying to contain the iron fire, so hopefully they can. Hopefully they can, folks. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on and into the question. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so moving into our super chat questions here, our first one is going to go to none other than Richard Ager. And thank you very much, Richard, for that $50 support right there.
Hey!
A very generous support, one of the largest ones of the night. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Richard said, great work as always, gents. Many thanks for the continuous and factual updates. No question from me at the moment. Please ask somebody else.
Hey, and a big thanks to your support, Richard, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for enjoying our work. Your massive support helps this channel to keep working and running every day. And we're greatly appreciative and thankful for you in helping this channel to keep running. And I gotta say, a many thanks to you for supporting the channel, and we will make sure to get a question from the live chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
So the live chat question goes to Killa. And Killa said, did you cover Ukraine using their domestically made glide bombs?
Yes, we actually did. We actually covered that down in Zaporizhia as the first use of. Oh, well, not the first use. I think we've seen it before on film. It's somewhere. It was like very seldom, and I can't even remember how long ago it was. But we did show the footage of the cabs hitting their targets in Zaporizhia today. So yeah, we actually did. It's really cool, honestly, to think that they're building everything from the ground up, even their own precision airdrop munitions at this point. They're even making those in the form of the cabs. So I would say yes, very interesting stuff, and we did cover it. And so a huge thanks to you for support, Richard Agur, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that has addressed that well. And I saw someone say in the chat that apparently brush clearing or the lack thereof really is what's causing the fires. Not quite. There's a lot of misinformation that goes on out there about uh, things that are happening, and if we're saying that like just to say it clearly, like the liberals are burning down the forest. I mean, Utah is a red state, and there's massive wildfires out here, so I don't really think the political party in charge has anything to do with the forest burning down. I think the forests are burning down because it's dry, and fires like dry, warm climates, and Utah is definitely one of them right now, so it's burning to the ground. It really is more so because of human involvement that creates wildfires, which really has no political affiliation, because there's a lot of people out there who are quite political that don't have a lot of sense, and they'll flick out a cigarette on the side of a road in the middle of drought conditions and start a wildfire, or arsonists might start fires. Generally it has nothing to do with political affiliation. It has more so to do with people not having common sense in adverse weather conditions. So I hope that does address that the best I can, because I don't even know why people would make that an argument in the chat, because wildfires can
I
affect
think he was
anything.
joking.
Well, there was someone, like, there's someone else, not Quantum Fighter. Like, I wasn't even addressing Quantum Fighter. It's a person a couple of below him, who is like been adamant on this the whole time it was brought up, that it's just damn liberals, and it's like, well, it's like it can't be, because Utah is a Republican state. And fires happen in any state, regardless of political affiliation. It's like I hate to say it for some people who are really political, but because like the party you don't like is in charge, that doesn't mean the force just like spontaneously explode. Like there's a lot more involved in and like brush clearing and like fire, like brush burning is something that is important, but at the same time that's not at all the cause of the fires that we're talking about in Utah. So I don't really know how that comes into play as let's blame one political party when it's not even the state of the political party where the fire's happening. But anyways, with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $50 support from none other than Charles Z07. And thank you very much, Charles, for that $50 support as well. And I just realized something here. Let me go take a look at something before I read the super chat off. He said Z07 PC verified. I wonder if that's a PC reference or a car reference. But Charles said, keep up the great work, guys, and take one from the chat.
And a big thanks to you for support, Charles. Hey! And I gotta say, thank you so much for supporting our channel and helping us to keep up the great work. It's folks like you who go over your way to support the channel that make it possible for us to be on air and to cover this news each and every single day. And we are greatly appreciative of folks like you, and we will make sure to get one from the live chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
So the one in honor of Charles goes to Mr. Light Rail. He said, are those domestically produced glide packages that Ukraine just started using, or are they supplied by the Allies?
Generally, they're built entirely in-house, from what we know. The Ukrainians have actually designed the cab basically as their own JDAM variant, and I believe, if I remember correctly, and I want to make sure to pull this up, Ukraine cab bombs. I'm pretty sure it's a kit that they install on their bombs to make them into glide bombs, and I want to make sure, let's see, it's domestically developed. I need to find a picture of this thing, because, let's see here. I'm trying to find a Ukrainian one, because the Russians have actually done the same thing to their cabs, which are the flying bombs, which were the menace of the Battle of Avdiivka for months. And then the Russians stopped using them for some reason, either because they ran out of their own cabs or they ran out of the ability to make the glide systems. But generally, I guess this is the best way that we explain it. This is kind of what it looks like. It's basically just a bomb, like a normal bomb, and they put the precision glide kit onto it, which gives it a little bit of navigational abilities and extends its range a little bit, so that way you can make it to its target and hit it with pinpoint accuracy. So it's basically a JDAM kit. And so to make sure to answer your question, let me make sure to get back to it again to read it. Um, these are not supplied by the Allies. These are entirely made purely by Ukraine, which is really what's interesting about them because they're now also making their own JDAM kits as well with the kind of materials that they have available. So I hope that does address that the best I can. Also, by the way, I have to be completely transparent. This is a Russian version of a guided cab. This is not the Ukrainian version. I don't think there's a picture of one out there yet that the Ukrainians have made. We just saw them impact their targets today on film. But I would generally assume that they look similar to the Russian ones or a little bit more refined. The Ukrainians do get kind of involved in style points, so they probably make it look a little bit more stylized than this horrendous looking thing. But anyways, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and a big thanks to you once again for sponsoring our live chat, Charles, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
All right, moving into our next one. This one goes to My Trucking Travels. And thank you very much, good sir, as well, for that $20 support. He said, good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for the excellent news that you provide each and every day. LLT LSA, Key West, Florida to Jacksonville, forget Texas. Please stay on for the live chat, and don't forget, LOL.
Hey, and a big thanks to your support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying the news that we cover in My Trucking Travels. And Key West, Florida to Jacksonville. What a route. Like, that's a long one, actually. Like, Key West to Jacksonville. How long is that? Let me measure that out.
Wait a minute. Key West to Jacksonville? Wait a minute. Going up the what side of the coast? The right side of it?
I'm guessing the Atlantic side. That'd probably be the quickest.
Oh, yikes. Goodness.
Sheesh.
That's an interesting route. Honestly, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but unless you're in like the super high-end area, which honestly, I really didn't like the super high-end area either, to be honest. That is a kind of a sketchy route right there, like going up of that like coastline. Like I thought it would be like really, really nice all the way up. It's not actually as nice as I thought it was going to be. It was kind of a disappointment, kind of scary.
Huh, and you want to buy GTA 6, huh? It's based in
Well,
Miami.
the whole point of GTA 6 is supposed to be grimy. That's the whole point.
Finna take Shorty to the swamp. Like,
oh man, I think the GTA 6 pre-orders open at midnight, in like an hour or two, at least for us on our time zone or something like that. That's the only game I'll actually pre-order, except the other one that I would pre-order is that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 that's based in South Korea. That's another one. I can't believe it. It seems like good games are starting to come out again. I'm shocked.
you know what's crazy, man? Look at this. This is unbelievable. To get from Key West just to West Palm Beach, that's 225 miles. Dude, that's unbelievable. I'm just going to draw a straight line to Jacksonville at this point. Damn, that's 500 miles just from Key West to Jacksonville. Dude, that's
Damn.
unbelievable. Like a 500-mile distance, by the way, folks, on like straight ground, say like from Birmingham to Nashville, to show you all that. Birmingham to Nashville is only 182 miles away. So the drive from Birmingham to Nashville is shorter in miles than Key West to West Palm Beach. That's mental. Like, that's absolutely mental when you think about it. You could go all the way, if we're talking about straight lines here, like 500 miles. Hell, you can make it to Fort Wayne, Indiana from Birmingham for the amount of distance from Key West to Jacksonville. Kind of puts Florida into perspective with how long Florida is from north to south. Very long state. But I gotta say, I hope that you're having a fun time out there, Mike Trucking Travels. I will say, though, that Florida, like the east coast of Florida, was a bit of a shock to me as well. Mandy and me actually made that trip at the same time. And it's something. Like, it's not what you would think it is, because I always had this idea, folks, in my head that, like, the east coast of Florida was, like, really high-end. Like, you always hear that it's, like, the billionaire's playground, so it gives you ideas that, you know, the roads would be perfectly paved. You know, there would be, like, really nice-looking cities that are very, very high-end. And then you get out there, and most of it is not that at all. Like, the wealth disparity in, you know, on the Atlantic side of Florida is unreal. People are either living in abject poverty, or they're a multi-billionaire living in like a 30,000 square foot mansion, and there's no in-betweens at all in any part of Florida's coast.
Yeah, down there in South Florida and stuff like that, there's Florida men down there, you know, not taking Shawty to the restaurant on Friday to go have a nice bite to eat. They're taking them to the swamp. Because apparently that's an attraction out there, is to go out to the Everglades, which is the swamp. and go out there and hang out, I guess. Who knows what's going on out there? I don't know, but that's what I've heard.
Man, I heard, man, that down in Broward County, the mountains are made of trash. Water. Man, oh man, I gotta tell you, man, the memes from that guy. I wish we could say his name on air. I'm not gonna say it though, but it's just hilarious, man. And also another thing I gotta say, like I appreciate a good like marsh and a swamp and everything, but the Everglades just isn't what I think of when I think of like beautiful land. Like we kind of grew up in lower Alabama, which kind of had like this like lowlands kind of marshy swampiness sort of to it. Not really, but kind of. And I don't know, like something about it, it just doesn't really appeal to me, you know? Like it does appeal to some people, to each their own, you know, everyone has their own preferences. But I'm more of like a mountains kind of a person, you know, I like the Cascades, the Everglades, the Glacier Mountain, well, not the Everglades, but the Glacier Mountain area, the Wasatch Front, the Rockies. I like those sorts of places. The like this sort of like biome doesn't really appeal to me all too much. I don't think of that as like scenic or you know, or
It's just
gorgeous.
dangerous. Also, it's a mosquito pit. Like it's all this water feels like a mosquito pit, and all these crocodiles or alligators. I mean, like out here and stuff like that. It's just I just don't like it. It's just too much. Just so nasty.
Yeah, it does play like but before some people say, but the Everglades is important. Yeah, it does serve an ecological purpose. It's a super important one, like the bayou. It's just that I don't really like swamps and marshes and stuff. It's just not what I think of as appealing, you know? Like if you told me like mhm.
Also by the way, real quick, Daniel Pegon said, "Yo, I live in Broward County. There's not just trash hills here." He's quoting a rapper. He's quoting a rapper from down there. By the way, we're not saying that Broward County is like full of trash or something like that. We're not saying that. There's some dude down there. It's like I don't know if he's like a parody or something. I'm not really sure what he is. Like, but he's like a rapper down there, and he like makes his whole theme like kind of like Jewish a little bit or something. And he like makes all these like wild statements about like that area down there in Florida. And I think one thing was he said it was like some mountains are made of trash or something like
Yeah.
that. He said something like that. Also said some other stuff that we can't even repeat on the stream right here about some other stuff that the dude said. Just wild stuff.
Yeah, I mean the mountains in Broward County are made of trash. It's a rapper reference, like it's a rapper line. Because man, I don't know what it is, but Matthew gets on his reels on like Instagram and whatnot, the craziest stuff. Like man, like what was the other one? Get on your knees and pray to the Lord. Yeah, man, like that one. Like there's also
I get served up like the hood like short videos or something like that, like stuff happening in the hood. I don't know why I get that, but it's like all the hood stuff. I get like I'm scrolling through there. I'm like I don't even really listen to rap or anything like that. I'm scrolling through here and just getting like nonstop like rap memes and stuff like that. I'm like why am I getting this? Nothing I do will reset the algorithm. I just keep getting it over and over and over.
So he showed it to me and he was like, dude, listen to this guy. And like one of his songs, he goes, "Warrrr, I'm finna take Shorty to the swamp." It was like the goofiest thing. And I was like, this is just stupid. Like it was so stupid, it was hilarious. So we just died laughing at it. And then one of the other songs he had, he was like, "Oh man, we about to get it. Broward County, where the mountains are made of trash," or something like that. And that was also ridiculous. So when we went down there, like when we were actually down there, we were like, man, Broward County, the mountains are made of trash. Not that the mountains are actually made of trash, it's just that this guy's like lyrics are absurd, like they're ridiculous. So that's what we're quoting. Like I would say it's not a bad place. It's just that it wasn't really the place for me. Like I don't really feel like I would have clicked into the puzzle pieces down there of the city and the folks that live there. But to each their own. I mean, Miami's a very popular place to be. It's just that I don't think it's the place for me to make it rhyme. But with that, it is time for us to move on and. You know what, man? Let me think here. You got any other memes that you want to tell the folks about? All the folks back home.
Oh, well, there's that one down there. I remember, like everybody knows the Florida Man. Like everybody knows that. That's something that's like that might be internationally known. I think if you ask somebody in Qatar who the Florida Man is, they'd probably tell you who it is. But it's not one person, by the way. It's a trope. But I remember there was a video showing a Florida Man. He was on a like highway down there in Florida, like down there near that Everglades or something like that. And there was like an alligator that kept trying to crawl into the highway. So this old dude, he looked like he was about like 60, 55, something like that. And when I say old, by the way, people about to be like, that's not old. I'm just saying. But the dude got out of his truck. He went over there, and there's like a whole crowd around the alligator sitting there just pointing at it and talking about it and stuff like that. So this one old dude jumped on top of it and started trying to wrestle it, and it like drug him down to the ditch, like down there with water in it. So he eventually got his arm somehow in the alligator's mouth, and he went, God dang. He like threw the alligator off. He like threw the alligator off. He kicked the hell out of the thing. Then he just walked off like nothing. I'm like, this dude just got his arm chomped by an alligator. And dude's walking off like it's just another day. He just got in his truck and drove home.
Man, I remember that one. Oh man, there's so many Florida things. There was the Florida man that kidnapped a doctor and held him at gunpoint to make his dog immortal, and there was like a whole hostage deal that happened with that. And then there was another Florida man. Like the Florida men stories are crazy. I mean, the craziest stories of Florida men obviously come out of Florida. And it's wild. I also saw someone say, "Hey, Enforcer, since you're a history major," and let me see, I gotta go find this one. Foster said, "Enforcer has a history degree. Look up early history. Florida was viewed as a swamp. No one wanted to live in it back in the 1800s and the 1900s. You're dead on the nail. Actually, nobody wanted to live down there. And one thing that's not talked about a lot, that was very big back then as to why people didn't want to live there, is that there were a lot of mosquitoes that carry malaria that lived in Florida. So your chances of mortality, of just flat out dying from malaria, were really high in Florida, a lot like the rest of the Caribbean. So a lot of people didn't want to live down there because of that. And also, because of the swampiness and the difficult to navigate terrain of Florida, there was actually a war that went on down here basically until the late 1840s that a lot of people don't know about, called the Seminole Wars, which was a war that the U.S. government fought against the Seminole tribes of Florida that continued their resistance and rebellion against the U.S. government until the late 1840s, because they would hide in the swamps and attack U.S. settlements on the outskirts of the swamps, and the army would have to go in and try and find them, and the army could never navigate the swamps well enough to get them. So that war dragged on for decades. It was basically basically a modern day Afghanistan down in Florida, because the Seminole warriors would fight in this asymmetrical way. They would just conduct basically attacks, terrorist attacks, if you want to call them that, on U.S. settlements in northern Florida, and the army would have to go down in the impassable lands of the swamps of central Florida and try and get them, and they never really did. Basically, the Seminoles had to surrender on their own, because outside of that, the U.S. Army still really couldn't get them. Kind of a crazy fact about Florida. And now Disney World sits on that very territory. Like, no joke. Like, basically where all the wars happen, Orlando and Disney World and all the other theme parks, they basically sit in the middle of what used to be a battlefield about 150 years before they were built.
Yeah. There's still a war going on in that territory. Now it's a war by Disney on your pocketbook.
Give me that money! Man, like a funny.
Man, you ever been shaken down by a mouse? Like, have you ever been shaken down by a rat?
Man, bro, that swamp rat got business acumen. That thing went to business school. Oh, you want to ride a roller coaster? Yeah. What? Like, give me that money! Like, flips you upside down and starts like shaking your pockets empty. Man, that rat's got some business acumen. That thing works hard. And then Universal, where is Universal Studio, like the theme park for Universal, even around here? Where is that?
I don't even know. Like, Universal's not exactly, like, I've never really known where it's at, really.
Oh, it's right here. Oh, they built this
Oh, it's
like
right
smack
there?
dab in the city, actually. Yeah, it's like right in the middle of
Damn,
the city.
right off the interstate, really. It's basically under the overpass.
Dang, they had to build a parking garage for this. Dude, they didn't build like Disney. I mean, like Disney, we came out here before it was cool. Universal had to buy land in the prime real estate, basically. That's crazy. Look, you can see they cordoned it off with the streets around it as well. And you just literally just drive on into the back lots. Dude, that's wild, man. This is not at all like Disney. I've never been to Universal, by the way, folks, so I haven't really looked at it a whole lot. But you have Universal, and then you have Disney, and I think there's even another one out here that's not Universal. Like, there's a couple of huge. Oh yeah, here's SeaWorld. That's another big one here in Orlando. Um, then there's another one on top of that. Like, there's a couple of huge ones out here, because Orlando's like the theme park land. But a really interesting place, though. But anyways, with that, enough of Florida. It's time for us to move on to the next one.
Man, I have such a bad joke queued up right now. I don't even know if I can say it. I don't even know if I can. I don't think it's gonna be allowed.
Start saying a part of
It's
it, and I'll stop you if it's bad enough.
You know how they have SeaWorld, right? It has the aquatic life in it and stuff like that. Shamu and the gang, all that stuff. Isn't that where Shamu is from?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they got SeaWorld, right? You spell it S-E-A. You know, they have a Sea World, S-E-E World. You know, like Sea World.
Uh-huh,
You
yeah.
know, you know who frequents Sea World quite a lot?
I don't know.
The visually impaired.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, but anyways.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway.
Hey, now see, now I was gonna hold that back because my better judgment said don't do it. Now everybody said say it. I said it already. You'll hear it in about 10 seconds. But I tell you what, it's pushing it too far, pushing the envelope. They say you push the envelope so far until you eventually push the envelope right off the side of your desk and then it falls to the floor. I also, by the way, people are getting a kick out of it. Y'all shouldn't be laughing at that. That's not a good sign.
Oh my god, they're laughing at that. Cancel. I'm just playing, by the way. But beyond that, though, I mean, that was a wild joke. I gotta tell you, a wild joke right there. Oh man. But anyway, so that we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Kerberos, who puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Kerberos,
Hey!
for that $50 support as well. We appreciate that very, very much. Kerberos said, so that this is not politics, this is policy. How the hell did the Affordable Housing Act get destroyed and just not get signed? I want Americans to have a shot at getting a home and not paying out the ass for it. Did you guys cover it? It's been proven to work. Now, you know, something that they're not reporting on that is in 10 days, it becomes law anyway. It doesn't matter if it's not willing to be signed or not. It'll become law in 10 days regardless. So it's really just like a stunt, really. It's obviously, that's a very bipartisan piece of legislation, by the way. One of the first things that everybody was able to agree on that I've ever seen in a very long time. I was kind of shocked that they passed that, but it seemed like it was decent to me. I mean, just across the board, I didn't think that's really political. I mean, being able to afford a house, I mean, that shouldn't be something that gets people riled up. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, not in the Congress it did. And I mean, I think it passed the House like 370 to 50. Like it was literally unanimous to the point if the president vetoed it, it would go back and they'd override the veto because they have the votes for it. I mean, it was that unanimous of a vote. And the president held it up. From what I heard, he held it up because they need to pass the Save America Act before I approve of this. So trying to attach one legislation to the other. Thing is, though, is that this is a lose-lose no matter how it goes. It, one, makes the president look pretty bad that he's shooting this down, and if he vetoes it, it's just going to get overridden by the Congress at that point, because they have enough votes in the Congress to just override the president and pass it into law anyways, even if he vetoes it. And, you know, it's also pretty crappy to make it look like you have to attach it to something else entirely, whether people can afford a home or not, because one of the main parts of the bill, if y'all haven't heard about it, is to stop multi-billion-dollar investment companies from going in and buying up whole neighborhoods at a time and artificially skyrocketing housing prices and taking houses off the market to also jack up rent prices. So that's the whole thing generally behind the bill. That's one of the major provisions in it, and now that's being held up. I don't know why that was like. It's a bad look. Like it's like, you know, if you ever wanted to stack the chips before a significant event, the midterms, this is one way you do it, is by making a grandstand on something that people have been talking about for years and saying that you're not going to sign it unless they do something else. Like, you know, this is obviously such an important thing to the US public that basically nobody opposed it in the Congress, not enough to make it matter. And now the president's just standing in the middle of it and making it a big deal. So, you know, it's dumb. I would say that, Kerberos, it's very dumb that that was even done, and it'll be put into law anyways. There's really no way that the president can stop it at this point. The Congress has the momentum to do it entirely on their own. But a big thanks to you for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $30 support from Game Theory, and thank you, Game Theory, for the generous 30. We do appreciate that. And Game Theory said, "What did you think of Miami?" Miami's traffic was awful. That's why I remember about it. We didn't even really get to check Miami out. Like, we drove down there from the area we were at. We were checking out the northern part of the area, like up there where it's like a little bit more affordable than Miami. Miami's crazy expensive, but it was very crowded. Like the whole place, like you couldn't even drive a block. It took literally an hour just to get 2 blocks down the road. I was like, what the hell? I'm like, this is bullcrap. We left immediately after that. I didn't really know what it looked like, to be honest.
I mean, we saw a little bit of it, but I mean, like at the greater Miami area outside of downtown Miami, I'll be honest, I wasn't really the biggest fan of it. Like, it just really wasn't my kind of place. It was extremely hot. It was extremely humid. I mean, it made Alabama seem like a joke. I mean, you walk outside, you feel like the sun's beating you to death instantly. And it's like, I don't really like that. Like, I didn't like that in Alabama. I certainly didn't like how extreme the heat was in Florida. And outside of that, I would kind of say it felt like I'm really against places that feel kind of like cookie cutter hell. And Salt Lake City even kind of falls within that category to where the city itself is kind of like cookie cutter hell. But it does it in a way where it's just passable in my mind, where I'm like, this isn't too bad to live in something like this. But the greater Miami metro area really felt like cookie cutter hell. Like all of the suburbs looked identical. They all had basically the same layout, and the stores were quite literally the same at every intersection that you would get to. And I was like, I don't really like that a whole lot. It doesn't really feel like unique. It basically feels like you're living in like a corporate shell where you're just consumer number 1 grillion, and you go consume at the consumer store and you go sleep in the sleeping pot. Like it kind of felt like that whole deal, and I didn't really like most of the places down here because of that. But generally that's a complaint that you can see in any city. Like you can see that in Dallas. Like Dallas is very similar to that. But the weather though down there and the environment, I wasn't really a big fan of that either. I'm not a big fan of swamps. And the whole place is built on a swamp. So, you could kind of tell, and I wasn't really a big fan. So that'd be my choosing. I mean, to each their own. Some people love Miami. I've heard people love Miami fervently, and to they can love it. I don't have a problem with them, but for me personally it's just not really my thing. But Matthew, what do you think about it, outside of us not really getting a look around downtown Miami?
I mean, I just didn't like it. Like, it didn't really have a good feel, like in the Miami area. Like, I got to see some of the people wandering around, and there's good and bad people everywhere, like anywhere you go. But the overall feel of the place, it kind of felt like a little bit phony or something. We didn't even really get out in Miami. It felt kind of phony, like like you see the movies and stuff in Miami. It kind of had that feel in real life to it to a certain degree. So I don't know. Like I just didn't care for it. Also, I was kind of surprised, like Boca and that West Palm Beach area and stuff like that. There were some really nice areas like around Boca and West Palm Beach, but they were little pockets of areas. Once you left that small little like bubble that they had created, you went into like it looked like a third world country. I'm not going to mention any words, but it looked like a third world country. I was like, I didn't even know it looked like this around here, especially this close to like the so-called nice area. I'm like, this is crazy. Like the difference between driving one block in the area of West Palm Beach, you can go from like Billionaires Row to like a very sketchy place in literally just one block of driving. Like it's really wild the disparity between the income in these places. It's really wild.
Yeah, so let me see. Here's the Brightline station, I think somewhere right down here. I need to find this because this is an important point of reference for what I'm about to say. So here's the Brightline station right here. And this right here is the next track that actually is run by CSX and a whole bunch of other people over here. And once you crossed that railroad track, no joke, the rest of this place is really nothing to look at. Like it was very rough looking in a lot of the places. Like everything kind of looked like run down and really beat up. Like there's no money and there's no local economy. But everything on this side of the railroad tracks, east towards the Atlantic, was super nice. Like it was unbelievably nice. But you would have to be like a multi-millionaire or a billionaire to really hang out in that and enjoy it. Otherwise you're in the rest of the city over here to the west. And that to me, it was not really what I was looking for. It just didn't really have what I liked. On the other hand, though, Seattle was pretty nice through and through, except for downtown. Like in some places, downtown was kind of sketch block to block. Like some blocks would be great, other ones not so much. But Seattle was exorbitantly expensive as well. But I'd say that qualitatively, Seattle was nicer by and large, like its suburbs and whatnot. Like I couldn't really find a bad spot in Bellevue or Mercer Island, or any of
Well,
those
hell
places.
not. Oh, you
But it's
shouldn't find a bad
extremely
spot there. It costs
expensive.
like you really had to be like a billionaire to live there. It ought to be nice.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Like I was like, it's very expensive in Seattle too, but like I would say though that Seattle qualitatively, like if you're saying like which place has a larger nice area, I would say Seattle does, but it's also extremely expensive like Miami. Basically any major city in America these days is largely unaffordable to live in any of them. Salt Lake is a rare exception, and I don't even think it's one of the 50 biggest in the country if I remember right, but it's an exception. It's actually fairly affordable to live here, but you have to deal with the wildfire. Like so, like it's honestly though, Salt Lake is a blast. I'm not even going to make it sound like Salt Lake is not nice. Salt Lake is super nice and really fun to live in. It's just that every once in a while you could get like arsenic clouds floating in the city, or a wildfire covering the city in smoke, or an inversion in the winter. And I would say that those are the things that are kind of weather drawbacks to Salt Lake that I really didn't know a lot about until we moved out here. But anyways, with that, a big thanks to you for support. I hope that has addressed that well. Great question, by the way, Game Theory. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Damien McClay, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you, Damien, for the 20. He said, boo, Belarus, boo.
I would agree with you. Boo! Man, Belarus sucks. Let me see. Street View.
You know, Lukashenko sucks.
Man, I heard that he's it's like a dice.
Hey.
Hey,
Hold on. I know where that's going. Chill out.
man, I was like, I'm gonna let it loose. Man, I was like, wait a minute, we're on YouTube. I can't do that yet. Oh yeah, here's what Belarus looks like. Man, charming, really, so charming.
Yeah, I tell you what, this looks like where Vlad the Impaler used to hang out like back in the old days.
Blah 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 blah. Doof.
Oh yeah, I love it how in Russia and like places like Belarus, they'll like put these like absurdly like ridiculous like colors like in the midst of like tan and like yellow and stuff. They'll put like aqua teal like right in the middle of it. It's like, what possessed you to put this color on this wall? It's like, this doesn't even match anything.
That would be a great idea, Vadim. What would be a great idea? Let's just paint some of the rocks teal blue, like neon blue. Yeah, that's a great idea. Like, it's like, who ever thought? Like, when I look at that, that's pretty tacky. I think we can all agree, right? Like, this is rough. But what about another view? How about this one? Oh,
Why does this minivan got such a long snout on it? Why's the hood so long?
man, this thing's trying to get a smell. Man, like that
Is
thing
that a Chrysler?
That's a Peugeot.
A Peugeot. Damn, it looks like a Chrysler minivan. It looks very similar to it, but yeah, I mean, why they built a sidewalks? Like they built the sidewalks here like it was made to like have like a herd of people going down it. And look, that person over there's not even using the sidewalk. They're walking in the grass.
Man, they have an entire one-lane road as a sidewalk, and this person walks in the grass. Like, make it make sense. And also, the grass is all dead. Like this, honestly, man, that reminds me of a lot of the like lawns in Montgomery, Alabama, where there'd be like just like nothing but sand. It'd be all dirt. Like, I don't even know how that would happen, but like a lot of the yards in Montgomery, Alabama, would just be raw dirt, like no grass. And a lot of that is like. A lot of cities in Russia and Belarus are like that. What the hell is this? The Electro Benzo
Is that a vape store? Zoom in on the window.
instrument. No, it's a machine store.
Oh, they sell drills and stuff like that in here. That's kind of an interesting place. I've never seen like a pop-up shop for like power tools.
And then you have a taxi, an Audi taxi.
I bet you an Audi doesn't pull up.
Imo Nasha Shuxel. I don't know what that last word means, but this means something like our limo. Like it's a communist limo. It's over 107-161. Phone number right there. Let's see what else. You got the Ubetsi. I don't know what that is, but very weird place. Like this place feels surreal. Like it's still stuck in communist times.
Yeah, it'll always be stuck in communist times.
Sadly. On the other hand, if we go to Britain and we drop down in a place like Sandwich, if I can find it. No, I can't find it. We'll go to Ashford. No, Canterbury. We'll go to Canterbury. In a place like Canterbury, if you drop down in the street, this is what it looks like, which is very nice. I like this place. It's pretty cool. But anyways, with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Daniel Pigon. And thank you, Daniel, for the $20 support. He said, please pray for Venezuela after two massive 7.2 and 7.5 earthquakes struck within a minute this evening. It looks like a war zone with countless buildings collapsed. And also, I hope that's, I say I hope it's all right, but unfortunately, it's not going to be all right if we're being totally honest here. I'm seeing people say that the death toll is going to be horrible, apparently. So, obviously, the Venezuelan government, not so savory, but the Venezuelan people, I mean, they've been suffering for ages in poverty, like down there in Venezuela, living, honestly, quite horrific lives down there in Venezuela. So the last thing they needed in the midst of all that suffering was a earthquake to take out them and their family members. So that's very unfortunate. unfortunate. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, really unfortunate thing. I hope that we see that there aren't as many deaths as we're anticipating. We're hearing thousands right now, so hopefully the number doesn't continue to rise to extreme heights beyond what they're already expecting right now. And it's a very unfortunate thing to see that they got hit with such a bad earthquake in a very bad spot, basically straddling all of the major cities within central northern Venezuela, Barquisimeto, Valencia, and Caracas, which all got hit pretty badly by it. So hopefully we'll hear that people are doing better than we're hearing from the initial reports right now. So a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, Daniel. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one goes to Roper6. And thank you, Roper, for the $20 support. He said, I know what a Bobcat is, but can you explain the significance of the Russian ones being destroyed? I can't figure it out. I do know what a leaf spring is, though. My 65 Mustang had them. Also nice. He said, thanks an LLT LSA. And to explain the basics of this, the whole Bobcat thing, by the way, is because the symbol they use to describe special equipment, it shows a skid steer loader, which is a Bobcat. But to most people that live in the south of the United States, they know it as a Bobcat, which is what I know it as. So I've always made the joke that, oh, look at the Bobcats, must be lost. But actually, special equipment's a much wider category than that. Bobcats and skid steers are included, but it also includes bridge layers, all kinds of special, like, alternative equipment. It all goes in that category right there. So it's more of just a running joke, really. It's not really necessarily actual Bobcats getting hit. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, it really is just moreso, the best way to explain it, It's not really a bobcat per se. It's more of a symbol that they use, and we got a kick out of it at the beginning of the war when the Kyiv Independent started putting out these reports, and that's why we use there specifically, is because it has that little bobcat skid steer on it, and that makes the joke land. So where I say, it's a bobcat. But all the special equipment, I mean, there's a lot of it. It could be an excavator. It could be, let's see here. I'm trying to think of some other special equipment. It could be a barbed wire layer, a trench digger. It could be anything. Special equipment really covers the wide gamut of most of the specialized vehicles that the Russian military uses, but we call them Bobcat skid steers just because of this little infographic thing right here. So I hope that answers that well. It's an inside joke that's been running forever, and I don't like. I think it might, like, even the definition for a lot of people might have been lost to time as to why we even do that. But I think we've been doing that running like gag for years now on the channel, like at least over 3 years at this point. And so that I hope answers the question. And also a 65 Mustang, nice. Let me go pull up one of those. A 65 Mustang. Let's take a look at one of these. I would say that this is probably a peak Mustang, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like those a lot. They're pretty cool.
I like them in white. Like white. Here we are. This one. White with the blue stripes. Like, that's probably like the coolest looking one, in my opinion. Other paint jobs are good, though. But this, to me, that's like quintessential, like, classic Mustang for some reason, in my mind. But a huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope that has addressed that well, Roper 6. And long live the Leaf Spring Army. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Lover, who puts in a 10. And they said Crimea is officially unsustainable. Russia will be forced to prioritize military power over civilian. And will we see a surge in Russian-friendly fire incidents in LSA?
We might. I don't really think we will. We might see a lot more fragging, though. That could start happening a lot more, especially depending on how draconian commanders become in Crimea. We could certainly see that. But friendly fire, where, say, other units start blasting each other, I would say most likely not. That's what I would be thinking, at least at this point. But Crimea is definitely becoming an unsustainable position for Ukraine to try and hold on to at this point. And it is becoming an absolute travesty for the Russians with how bad everything's turning out, not only in Crimea, but also in Kherson, which is as bad off. It's just that we don't really hear a lot about them because there's really only the military, the Russian military, that's left in Kherson. Most of the civilians have been packed up and moved out, or there's really not a lot of them there anyways. So big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. Long live the Leaf Spring Army, and with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from J-Stick, and thank you, J-Stick, for that support. He said, thanks for everything you gentlemen do, and here is for the stream and your stance on America, i.e. the civics of all of it. And love the LSA, and sorry can't do this more often, and Ukraine will never be conquered, and take one from the chat.
And we thank you incredibly for the support, J-Stick, and any support that people are willing to give is a huge thing to us, and we're greatly appreciative of it. Nobody has to support the channel. Like, we always want to make it clear, nobody is forced or compelled to support the channel. Like, if you've been watching for years, like, we don't expect y'all to support. It's always a pleasant surprise to us that people go out of their way to support the channel, and it makes the entire thing possible, and it helps us to be able to do this as our job. And so any support that you give, J-Stick, we're greatly appreciative of it. Whether you think it's a whole lot or a little, we still are massively thankful for it, and cannot thank you enough, as a matter of fact. And also, thank you so much for enjoying the stream and enjoying our stance on the United States. I consider myself a proud patriot of the country, and I try and look out with my words here on the show for its best interest, along with Matthew. And we'd love to know that a lot of people enjoy to hear our take on things instead of just hearing what one political party or the other would tell you, which at this point I don't really think is even American in a lot of the stances that they take. But beyond that, I gotta say, a huge thanks to you once again. I would agree that Ukraine will probably never be conquered at any point, especially here in the now. And a big thanks to you once again. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. And Maddie, what do we got?
And this one goes to Penguins. He said, what if the Western powers rebuild Russia if they disarm their nukes?
Let me make sure to read that. What if Western powers?
That sounds like we're doing with Iran.
$300 billion. Well, I don't think the Russians in any successor state or any successive government will ever give up the nuclear weapons, because it's a very big part of the Russian ideology of their nation as a people, that they have some form of nuclear deterrence. That's why they kept a hold of them even when they really couldn't afford them after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and I think they probably still hold on to them well on into the future, whatever successor state the Russian Federation turns into. So we could offer it to them, but I have a feeling that they probably never accept it, because they look at it as the wicked Westerners are trying to disarm us of our nukes, so that way they can come in and treat us like dogs. Because that's the mindset they still have right now. So a big thanks to you for sponsoring a live chat and helping this channel to keep running. And that would be my 2 cents on that sort of an offer. It's a good offer. I'd say it's quite a noble one. But I don't think they would even accept it. So with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Mark Dixon and a 5 from Darren Quinn. And a huge shout out to the both of you, Mark and Darren, for that support. And we appreciate the both of you very much. We also have a 5 from Hednar, who said, when the U.S. hears the word deal, they have the same reaction as Mr. Krabs when he heard the word money. And LSA.
Damn. It's not wrong. That's pretty true. That's a pretty good comparison right there. I gotta say, that would actually took me away. I was like, damn, that's a good one. But a big thanks to your support. That was the channel to keep running, and that's not far from the truth. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $20 support from Go-Kart. Thank you, Go-Kart, for that 20 right there. We do appreciate it. He said for the GTA 6 fund.
Oh, well, I tell you, Matthew's going to appreciate that one a great deal. I'm not pre-ordering. I'm going to tell you this, folks. I'm not pre-ordering GTA 6. I'm going to wait for it to come out and see what it's like. And if it's good, then I'll get it. If it's not good, I'm going to not touch it with a 10-foot pole. Because I've learned, I've been burned a lot over the years of getting really invested in video games, supporting them, their, their Patreons or their Kickstarters, or pre-ordering them, and then they come out and they're not that good. And so I'm always hesitant at this point. I'm always like, I'm going to wait for it to release, and then if it's good, I'll buy it. But if it's not good, I'm not going to buy it.
It's got to be good, after waiting all this time. It's got to be good. And that could sink their whole company if this one didn't go right. So I think they got to make it work.
Ah, man. Yeah, like the Cyberpunk 2077, Starfield.
Oh, those are all side shows right there compared to GTA.
Fallout 76. Need I say more?
Now, Fallout 76 was a blunder. That was a blunder right there, but I never really thought much of it in the first place.
Man, I remember when that damn beta came out, you literally called me because I was still at the house. You're like, man, you got to play it. You got to tell me what it's like. And I was like, dude, this game sucks. I was like, this thing is terrible. It's a half-baked, awful game. But, I've just been burned enough. I know, and also that's the other thing, man, is that, I think you and many people who are really, anticipating GTA 6 might be having a little bit of Paris syndrome with it, because y'all, a lot of people are making GTA 6 into this thing that is going to have these unobtainable standards that it's never going to meet, probably. And so people are probably going to be devastated when it comes out and it's kind of just like GTA 5 but better, and maybe the map's
no. It's going to be something that you've never seen before. You're gonna love it so much you'll get tired of loving it.
Man, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I'll say, like, it looked really good from the trailer. I had a friend show me the trailers that had come out so far, and it looked pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie, it looked impressive, but I'm still gonna wait for it to come out before I get it because it's not like you have to pre-order it, it's gonna sell out or anything. It's a digital copy, so you just buy it anytime. And I'd rather wait to see if it's good and then spend my money than kind of gamble and hope that it's good and then it comes out and it sucks. So I'm still gonna wait. But a huge thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep it running, Go Kart, and supporting that GTA 6 fund, which we're greatly appreciative of. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Otani Sanji, who put in a 5. And thank you, Otani. He said, great stream, guys. Great news, especially the Romanian Union news. Love that coverage. And keep the pulse on it as always. And y'all are rocking it. And all I'll say,
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support, and thank you for enjoying our coverage of that tonight, because it was kind of a bit of a smaller note in the world news that we cover, but I always like to keep an eye on a little, well, not really little, it's very big for the Romanians and Moldovans, but I always like to keep eyes on stories like that, because I think they're interesting to watch, because they might turn into something, or they might fizzle away and turn into nothing, but it'd still be interesting to watch them nonetheless, and I thank you for appreciating that we covered it. And so with that, long live the Lee Spring Army will never die, and with that, we're on the next one.
we also have a 10 from DWRB, and thank you as well. Thank you as well, good sir, for that support. Also, sorry for laughing. Somebody's put a joke that I'm going to repeat here in a minute. I'm going to steal their joke. But DWRB put in that 10. He said, thoughts on Germany canceling the F-126 frigate project, and do you think the new program, based on a Mako A200, will be a suitable replacement? The F-126 had some sick renders and stats.
Let me see. I'm trying to get the high def renders of the vessel. Oh, dang. Oh, come on. They got to have one. Like, oh, here it is. This was what the F-126 was going to look like. Pretty cool, honestly. I mean, it looks pretty modern and advanced, but I don't really know a lot about the weapon systems of the F-126 or what it was going to be capable of. I know that the Germans usually build their ships, and their whole doctrine is built around coastal defense. They don't really work on power projection at all, because of this whole thing that happened in World War II with this guy who was from Austria. But outside of that, I don't really know a lot about the weapon stats. It's a very interesting looking vessel. I will give it that. And let me see what the Mako A200 looks like, because I haven't heard about that one. The A200. Let's see. So it's the Miko A200. Let's see here. This one. Oh, is it that one? Or is it like a more advanced version? I'm guessing it's this one. Sounds to me kind of like budget cuts. The U.S. did this as well with the Navy. We're actually not building I think it's the FFX. We're now building this little goofy like Coast Guard cutter thing for the Navy that doesn't have any VLS cells, any air defense missiles, or really anything to speak of. I think it's kind of the same thing. The reason why we did that is because we don't have the shipbuilding capacity anymore to build larger ships like the FFX type. And so we started to scale down to smaller vessels to try and build up our shipbuilding infrastructure again. And maybe the Germans are doing that, but the Germans aren't lacking for shipbuilding infrastructure. I mean, they actually do pretty decently at that, even in the modern day. But that's weird. I don't really know enough about the program to speak speak on it with a great deal of knowledge. Sadly, did DWRB. But if I had to guess, it's probably similar to why the U.S. downscaled our ships in size that we're trying to build, basically for the same reasons. So big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Rye Guy SR. He said, late, but I made it, and I'll be back at the beginning if anyone needs me, and take one from the chat.
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support, Right Guy SR. And better late than never is what we always say. And we will make sure to get one from the live chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And this one goes to Obu, who said, for the question segment, do you guys think hunger would cause the Russian lines to turn against the officers and work with Ukraine? Now, that's an interesting point. I mean, hunger drives people to do crazy stuff. I mean, they'll turn on people. People get hungry, they start getting a little bit hangry and stuff, and they start turning on people. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, it depends on how many Russians are willing to do that in large enough numbers, because obviously the officers would probably have them mowed down for turning on them. So they'd have to be in large enough numbers where it wouldn't really matter very much. So I guess if the food shortages get serious, maybe. But enforcement, what say you?
I would agree. If they got serious enough, maybe. But I have a feeling they never work with Ukraine. They probably just mutiny on the front against their officers and maybe try and revolt against the Russian government. But they're probably not going to be creative enough to try and make their own deals with the Ukrainian government or the military to work with them. But there definitely is a possibility of a mutiny and a revolt against the Russian government, though. So big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have 5 from NY Inc. And thank you for the $5 of support. Excuse me, goodness. And they said, Matt, you crazy scientist, what did you code up to fix redirects? A Chrome extension? Bravo, by the way. And that's exactly what I did. When I saw the problem, there's actually a Chrome extension out there already that bypasses that, by the way, the whole redirect thing on Google My Maps. There's already an extension out there, but the problem is, though, that's very risky because you don't really know what's in the source code of an extension, and it could be scraping data, even though it says it's not. So I'm always a little bit skeptical about that. So I was like, we can't use that because we don't want to have all of our credentials stolen if it's a malicious extension. So I'll just go code my own. So I went back to the computer over here, opened up Visual Coding, and then started working on it with the help of Claude, of course, because I'm not a good JavaScript coder to say the least, and that's what it's written in. So a little JavaScript, 2 different little programs, got it fixed. It's running. It's now a Chrome extension, a custom made one for the enforcer to fix his map.
Hey, I'm happy for it. Like, I'm really happy for it, folks. It's a damn amazing thing to just, have a bypass built in now to where we can keep the show running like it always has. But yeah, man, they just did that. It was amazing. Honestly, I was blown away that he did it. He did it in like minutes. And I got it installed and it worked. I was blown away. It was an unbelievable and impressive thing. But a huge thanks to your support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to none other than Big Ron. And thank you, Big Ron, for the 5. He said, according to the scientist, that San Andreas is at its highest stress levels in 1,000 years.
I would say with the economy these days, everything in California is in a great deal of stress. Probably the greatest it's been in 1,000 years. But also, all jokes aside, I have heard about that, and a lot of people are saying the next big one is coming around, like the 1905 earthquake in San Francisco. And I'm really, really concerned about what that's going to look like. Also, they're scared about a earthquake out here in Utah, and the Mormons are trying to shore up that temple downtown. They got like this crazy construction works going on around this thing, but they're not touching the original structure. They're just building under it, and they're building these giant shock absorbers and stuff that the building's now going to sit on. It's a whole crazy deal. They're spending billions on it. I think it's like a $4 billion project. So basically like an Army research and development project that they're doing to renovate this temple. But yeah, I've heard about that, and it's somewhat concerning. I'd have to agree. But a big thanks to your support and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a $15 super chat from Chef Danny B. And thank you very much, Chef Danny, for that $15 support. And it's good to see you once again.
Hey!
And he said, good evening, Enforcers, Chef Danny. And it has been a little hazy here today. I would imagine so that smoke's literally blowing straight over into y'all's state over there. But he said, I was wondering why until y'all said something. And another question, what type of jets does the Blue Angels use?
Why, they use FA-18 Super Hornets, the Navy's finest. Let me go to the Blue Angels and show that to y'all. The Blue Angels. Here we are. No, we don't want their website. We want the Wikipedia. Yeah, because Wikipedia is always a reliable source. But beyond that, let me get down here to the modern aircraft that they use, because they have them all in sequence. Back when they started, they actually used Hellcats, these right here.
Oh, Hellcat.
Oh, raise hell, boy. Man, and then they went to Bearcats, which were the next ones in line. Those were pretty cool. I like the Bearcats. And then they got their first jet aircraft, the Panthers, and then they got the Cougars. You can find a lot of those down at the Navy air stations. You can also find Tigers. That was the next one they flew. And then they had F-4 Phantoms for a minute. But then they replaced those with Skyhawks, which I loved the Skyhawks. I always thought they were cool looking. And then they got another variant of the Skyhawk. I think this was the A4F, which was a little bit more advanced. And then they finally got their first FA-18 Hornets. And now, in the modern day, I believe they have the Super Hornet, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, let me check that. Maybe it's just the Hornet. No, yeah, they actually do use the Super Hornets from 2020. So I was correct on that. I'm not wrong. But yeah, they use Super Hornets. They look good, too. Like, the paint job on them is slick. I would say in between the two, the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds, I like the Blue Angels paint job better than the Thunderbirds. That might be a hot take, but I think it just looks better. And also, on top of that, yeah, that wildfire's been nuts. Like, it's covering the whole, basically, the Rockies with that smoke. And it's tough. I mean, like, you can smell the wood smell in that smoke still from that fire down in Cottonwood. Well, not down in Cottonwood. It's down near Beaver. For some reason, they called it the Cottonwood Fire, although we have 2 Cottonwood valleys up here near to us, Big Cottonwood and Little Cottonwood. But big thanks to you for the support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
That's at a 5 from Hednar, who said, now years later, with all the bugs worked out, play Cyberpunk. By far, probably the best game and story I've ever played, and the anime is pretty good too. Now,
Really?
my question of Hednar is this: why would you need why would you be playing a Cyberpunk when we have a real life punk, Vladimir Putin over there in Russia? But oh man, I tell you, hold on a minute. Let me go and pull the little let's see here. There we go. I was looking for that thing. I was sitting there. I was hovering over there. I almost missed it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, honestly, I'll have to see about giving it a try. I heard a lot of people that I knew that got it at the beginning. They're like, "This game sucks," and then they never played it again. I think so. That's all my only impression of it. But I do know that Fallout. A lot of people say Fallout 76 is a lot better these days than it used to be. It's just that I don't really like buying like half baked games at the start, and I only like putting money into games that are like kind of completed and really good, or they're just good enough as is to be enjoyable, even if they're half baked. And a lot of those kinds of games like Cyberpunk and Fallout 76, they came out really half-baked, and that's why I'm kind of scared of throwing cash into, is basically like throwing $70 or $80 into a game that isn't even really playable when it comes out. But I will have to check it out, though. That's really neat to hear that they did improve it. And so a huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one here goes to Miami Catfish, who puts in a 5. They said,
Eh.
LSA, speaking of games, have you tried Stalker 2?
I haven't, actually. I've heard a lot of good things about the Stalker series. I've just never tried it, unfortunately. But I definitely will have to, because it's made in Ukraine. But a huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Gisela Maynard, who said, for the 10-foot pole that Andrew will not touch GTA 6 with.
Oh, man, I think you're really support. And yeah, you know what? I do need a 10-foot pole, so that way I can say that with actual meaning behind it, that I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole because I have a 10-foot pole. And so a big thanks to your support. I just saw D-Lo say Manor Lords. I don't know if you mean Manor Lords as in it's a good game or it's a half-baked game. But my take on it, it was kind of a half-baked game. The hype around it was so big, and it looked extremely good. I mean, like, the graphics even still on it are mind-blowing, how beautiful of a game it is for a city builder. And then it came out, and it is pretty half-baked. Like, even still, like, today, it is still a half-baked game. And I think it's been, like, a good while since it came out. And I'm so saddened by that, because it had so much promise. It is a very cool game on the city building side. And then everything else about like the politics and the warfare side of the game that it was supposed to have, it just never even feels like now that it was ever really completed entirely. Like the game as it is right now, it has a very low replayability. Like, you build one city in the game, you basically built them all. No reason to do it again. And I haven't really played it farther than like 20 hours or something like that total. Sad, really, honestly, D'Lo. I was really hoping for that game to be a good one too. I had all my friends, like every single friend that I had, they were like, "Oh, I'm getting Manor Lords. It's gonna be great. It's the greatest game we've ever seen." And sadly, that one didn't really pan out. But with that, we're on the next one.
Also, a 5 once again from DWRB, who said, if supplies continue to worsen for Russia, do you think we could see another mutiny and a march on Moscow, Wagner Group style?
Possibly. It's definitely possible. It's not out of the question. Russian units historically mutinied a lot historically. We could see it. It's just that I don't know if it happens again, how big it's going to be, or how successful it end up being. But it definitely will happen again. And so big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Kyle Padell, and thank you, Kyle, as well. He said, I've been playing Hold Fast Nations at War.
Oh, that's a good one. Like, I love that one. The people who get on the voice chat in that game are hilarious. Like, they get deep into the character. And there's a lot of funny clips out there from that game. I love Hold Fast. Like, Hold Fast is a good game. Another game that came out, well, I think it was called, like, Beyond the Wire or something like that. And I saw another YouTuber make a video on it. He was like, old people could play this game because you don't have to aim, and you literally can't aim in the game, but you have to shoot a rifle. It's a ridiculously cool game, like a fun one too. And I like that one. That one's a pretty cool one. But yeah, I love Holdfast, and they've added so many different like genres to it. I think they have World War I, the Napoleonic Wars. I think they just added the Revolutionary Wars to it as well, and they also did that the War of Rights. Like, they added the Revolutionary War to that game for the 250th. So that's really cool too. But a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $3 support from Plazoth, and thank you, Plazoth, as well for that 3, and we do appreciate that. He did not leave a comment, but we do appreciate it.
Hey!
We also have a $20 support from Jose Diaz. He just threw that in right
Hey!
now. And a huge shout out to Jose also for throwing in that super sticker of the YouTube hippopotamus jumping around. Honestly, I'm kind of showing his backside there a little bit, but it said victory, though. That's all that mattered. And put the peace sign up right there. Look at that thing. It knows what's up. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, that thing had a victory showing that ass. Man, like, honestly, man, that thing is showing it. Like the big booty worm.
only hippos.
Yo, hey, yo, like, man, what the hell? But beyond that, a humongous thanks to your support, Jose Diaz, down in Florida. You're actually, I believe, down in Orlando. And we thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say that we're greatly appreciative to have you here tonight, and we thank you for enjoying the show. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to Gabriel Swanton, who put in a 2. He said, you guys think any intelligence agencies watch you? Well, we know former definitely watches. We know a few of those. One of them wrote us in the book. That was, excuse me, Betrayus. They wrote us in the book. I don't know what's got me coughing, but that was a former one there. But maybe some active watch. I doubt they would say it publicly if they did. But maybe. But Enforcer, what say you?
I bet they do, but like as far as like watching the show, they're not watching it to like get the inner scoop. It's probably like open source intelligence guys that get paid to scoop open source intelligence off the internet, and some of them might just be like, oh, they do it pretty good. I'll just watch them. It could be that. It's definitely nothing high level though. If anyone's watching us in the CIA. Or any other intelligence agency, it's just like the folks that work there, and they might watch it for fun because it's their job, and they're like, oh, I'll just watch it to see what their surmising has happened all day long since I work in the open source intelligence side of the CIA, or something like that. I just don't like it's certainly, I would say, like, they watch it, but it's definitely not at the director of like the director of the CIA, Ratcliffe, is like sitting down for the day and he's like, okay, everyone be quiet, I gotta watch the Enforcer.
Oh, yeah?
Definitely not at that level, but the folks doing open source, they're definitely watching.
Oh yeah, you got to imagine. By the way, if you're in an intelligence agency, you can't talk about what you're doing like with anybody outside of the four walls of the building. So if you go home and something like that, you're not able to go home and like talk about what's going on and stuff like that with your family and stuff like that. If you do, you're violating the law. So if you want to just pretend like you're just don't know anything, you just want to sort of play ignorant and want to jump on somewhere and talk about stuff, this would be the place to do it. You just jump on here and not disclose your identity, don't say anything too sensitive, and just chat with common information everybody already knows about.
Yeah, I mean you could. And also on top of that, especially like there's a whole group at this point, a department in the CIA that does open source intelligence. So people like us sit around all day looking at Twitter and everything else, and they just find stuff that people post online, because some of the best intelligence gathered these days is actually gathered through open source intelligence on real-time events that are happening, because people film everything these days and they upload it. So a lot of those guys, I would bet they probably do watch the show, because we're basically doing what they do for a job. It's just that we do it publicly and we don't work for the CIA. We just run a YouTube channel. So a lot of them probably watch it and are like, well, it's pretty all right. Some of them might like it, some of them might hate it. I'm not really sure what their opinion is on it. We've never talked to one of them. But I'm sure some of those people watch it. But it's interesting when you think about that, because we always are saying, oh, you never know who's watching. And every year we find out that like crazier and crazier people are watching the show. Not like crazy mentally, but like who they are. It's like more and more of them are watching the show, and it's really
Yeah.
weird to know who it is.
There's one in the chat right now that works there. Like statistically speaking, there's at least one that's currently on the channel right now. I mean, if 10,000 people are watching right now, and this category attracts people that are interested in geopolitics and things like that, which naturally sort of lean that way, like they might work in that field. There's got to be at least one here right now that's probably listening, thinking, "Huh, that's interesting. They're calling me out." They're probably feeling paranoid right now.
They're in the walls, like, man, like they're gonna call up the NSA. That's probably another group that watches this, is like the anyone affiliated with the NSA. Because most everyone who does this kind of stuff on YouTube is on some sort of watch list. Because everybody's on a watch list, but you usually get bumped up like to high priority watch list if you have a voice of any type at all. So then they watch you a little bit extra. So I'm sure there's people out there who do watch. It's just that we don't know who or how many of them. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Under the last NSPM, what that they passed, that national security memorandum, they stated in there that anybody that had what they called anti-American ideals was subject to being labeled as a domestic threat. Did you ever hear about that?
Yeah, I did hear about that, and that's very subjective. Who could be called,
Oh yeah.
a threat? Like we could be actually.
Yeah, I mean, just the mere fact that we, advocate for Ukraine's success against Russia, that could be enough for them to create a justification to say, okay, these people might be a threat, and then they start surveilling you or something like that, or start, checking your stuff, wiretapping, and all kinds of other stuff. Not really because they should, but just because it gives them a loophole to do it, which is really, really, if you think about, I mean, obviously I don't have anything to hide, but at the same time, though, that's not the point. The point is it's a violation of rights. That's the point.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, like the thing that I always say, like with that, is some people be like, well, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to be scared of. It's like, well, it's none of the government's business if you have anything to hide or not. That's not their right. Like that's a clearly laid out thing. The expectation of privacy and also the protection against warrantless searches and seizures in the U.S. Constitution and multiple amendments, the Bill of Rights, and everything else. It's like it's like I find that ridiculous that these days they go, well, I mean, we're not going to act on the information that we get. It's like, come on. It's like, of course they will eventually. It's like, that's why they're getting the information. It's like, what other reason would they have for it? They're getting information to see if they need to act on something. So, I mean, like, hell, like Miss Easter just said, I mean, the U.S. is arresting people who touch water if it's in a specific spot right now. So it's like, you can only imagine how in the world they're using other sorts of government apparatus like that. But anyways, with that, we're on the next one.
And our next one here goes to none other than
Man, bro, you've
goodness.
been working in the copper mines or something?
I think the smoke is getting through the window or something because I don't
What's
know
your
what's got me
filter?
hacking up right now. Maybe the filter's clogged or something at this point. I'll have to check it. But anyway, excuse the coughing, by the way, folks. But our next one here goes to none other than Crispy. And Crispy put in a crispy $20 support. And a huge shout out to you, Crispy, for supporting the channel yet again tonight. And we do appreciate that support. He did not leave a comment, though. He never leaves comments. But he does put in that support, and we appreciate it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta tell you, like those miners, the 49ers, he came in a crispy. I gotta say, all jokes aside, I gotta say, folks, man, he does sound like he's getting like tuberculosis or like miner's lung or something over there. I was
I feel
listening
like
to
I'm
that
dying. I feel like I'm falling apart.
Oh, well, don't make it sound like morbid, man. like we're trying to keep it light here. But I'm just kidding. But like, do you really feel like that though?
I don't know, like between the headache yesterday, today, I just felt like off all day long today. Also had a little bit of a situation going on earlier too. I just don't know. Like it's just not a good time for Matt. Like Colton Matt it's doing sickly right now. So hopefully the Colton Matt will pull through.
Well, I mean, if you ever pass, at least you say the cult of Matt ascended or something. You can come up with that. Like it's like you go, just take that
The
angle.
martyrdom of Matt.
Oh man, he got that lumbago. Man, the Vanderboot just said that. He got that lumbago. Man, he might. You never know. I mean, that sounds gnarly. And weirdly enough, he has like a cough like that all the time. Like it's like we never worked in the coal mines either, so I don't know how he has that and why that's always around. It seems like walking pneumonia, maybe. That's like I think that's one of the symptoms of walking pneumonia is having like a persistent cough all the time. That could be it. But anyways, outside of that, though, I do thank you for the support, Crispy, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running. And we thank you greatly for that support. And so with that, it's time for us to move on and into the next one.
And our next one goes to Kerberos 3 once again, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Kerberos, for the second or third support of the night. They said, Sir, your ankles look glorious today, sir. But the enforcers mimicked your voice again, sir. I said, thank you. That's un-American. Remove their rotisserie chickens. They said, sir, that chicken, it's not quite like KFC. They don't have the herbs and spices, and the colonel didn't make it. He's a good man. He started in the gas station right here in Salt Lake City. And they said, sir, put some salt in that chicken, sir. It's so salty, it makes me feel like I need buckets of water. But enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, those enforcers, those little bastards, they have the audacity to have free will. Something that's ridiculous. These days, you have to be a hardcore MAGA supporter or a blue-haired liberal, and they don't fall in either group. So we don't like them. We don't like them at all because we can't target them and say they're liberals, but we also can't say that they're loyal supporters. What do we do? What do we do? I don't know. Put them on a list, a watch list. We'll give them a Rolex or something eventually. But I gotta say, a big thanks to your support, Kerberos, and helping this channel to keep running. If it wasn't for amazing folks like you, where would we be? Where would we be? We wouldn't be anywhere. We would be still lining the bottom of that reflecting pool with that shitty blue paint that's peeling up off the bottom. They say that someone took a knife to it, but they still haven't shown any proof of that. Like, no videos or anything. I'm not doubting, it's just that if it's true, why in the world not show the footage? Like, let's see the footage. Let's see the proof. But they don't show it. They don't show it because they don't want you to see. They don't want you to see. But
Have you seen the new banners they put up on the side of the wall at the Department of Interior?
oh, dude, like that. Those have been around for a minute. Like, actually, like
No, these are new. These are new. They had put them on the Treasury, I think, before, but now they're putting them on the other federal buildings like the Department of the Interior. So now this is a new banner now.
Steve banner. Like, it's
I put
like,
in the likes tab. You can show it if you want to put it in the likes tab. It's there now if you want to let the people see what I'm talking about. These new government banners that harken back to the times of North Korea. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not really sure who thought this was a good idea because I'm like, first of all, this is not a friendly looking photo. Like, this looks menacing. Like, it's not exactly what you call like a friendly look. Like, oh, this is your like friendly Democratic leader here. This looks like somebody who doesn't really like have a good like face going here with the way they're portraying themselves. But it's like, isn't this what they do in North Korea? Like, they put up the posters and stuff on the wall. It's like, well, why are we doing this? And number two, who thought this was a good idea?
he probably did.
That's an awful picture, by the way. I'm not saying that because of my personal feelings toward him. That's just a bad picture. I mean, George Washington over there on the left had like a regal look, and I think that's just a painting, by the way. But it's like he had like a regal look. It was kind of like just a neutral, bland expression. The expression on the current president is like almost like an angry, hostile look on his face. It's like, also, as people are saying, that's the mugshot. I don't think that's the mugshot. I think is that the mugshot?
I think it might be, and they like doctored it a little.
Hold on a second. Let me pull that up. Let's see here. I gotta find this out. That'd be unreal if they put the mugshot photo. No, that's not the mugshot photo. The mugshot photo is a lot different looking than that. This is the presidential portrait that they did right there, and they just cut out the background on it. But it's just, the lighting is ominous. The expression is ominous. I'm like, well, no president before has ever wanted to look like a bastard on the poster. It's like, this is not a good look.
Nah, I mean, not really. It's not a good look at all. And they're putting these banners on everything in Washington. Like, you go around, his face is everywhere. And I gotta say, folks, like, if someone is really truly as selfless as they try and make him out to be, why in the world did they have to put his face on every banner everywhere in Washington? Like, would he need that if he was really selfless? And I think that kind of answers itself. And then someone's going to say, well, he's owed this because he's been persecuted. Well, yeah, but if he's selfless, like Christ, like he did in that one tweet where he made himself look like Jesus. I mean, it's like, wouldn't he not have his image everywhere? I mean, wasn't that like one of the big things about Jesus and God is that there's no graven images, like that sort of a deal. Also, I saw someone put a post over here. I mean, it's not that far off. This is from Madison Square Garden in 1938. And this was the the Nazi Party of America rally in Madison Square. It's
Oh,
just a
yikes.
bit of a parallel there. It's not a good look.
Yeah, I would say not. It should really be like when you have like a presidential picture, you should look at the picture and think, oh, I would like to meet that person. He looks like a nice guy, but he's also got some confidence behind him. That's why he's the president. But it should never be like you look at the picture and you're questioning, wait a minute, is that the president of the United States or is that like the president of North Korea or the dictator of North Korea? It's like I'm not sure. I don't know. Like just. Honestly, I'm just tired of all that bullshit, to be honest with you folks. If I'm not mincing words here, I'm tired of all that bullshit, like that bravado macho man shit. This is a democracy. This isn't a dictatorship. So to get on the picture looking like an asshole, it's like, that's not what we're about. I'm not going to mince words on that.
Also, on top of that, it's like I don't even know why the picture was taken that way. It's like he's just basically he's a glorified civil servant. You know, it's he got elected into a position that's like being a mayor. It's just a little bit more important of a mayor. It's like that's what the president is. I don't know if people like think about that anymore, but it's like the job of the president isn't, you know, like they're like basically God incarnate elected on earth, appointed by God. It's just some guy. You know, it's like I don't really like, and I cannot stand the cult worshiping stuff, especially with this guy that goes on. Like it happens in politics these days all over. But with this guy in particular, people act like you have to literally like gargle the guy every day, and if you don't, you're a heretic. Like the people who support him, it's like that's a really dumb like take. It's like this guy is not the greatest guy who's ever lived. I could come up with like a million people. I could come up with 10 people right now to count on both hands that are better than this guy that were alive in the last 100 years. So it's like, you know, acting like this guy is like the second coming of the Lord is really ridiculous to me. Like, you know, you look at his personal life, there's really nothing there to say, you know, oh, he was definitely a virtuous and pious person who lived by good values. I mean, you know, there's nothing there. You know, if you run casinos, you know, and also, you know, you have like a very questionable sort of a private life, you know, it's like, it's not really anything I look up to. And then also just the personality of the person isn't really anything to speak of either. I mean, they have a very abrasive personality, which is very tough to even try and deal with for any long period of time. But that's my 2 cents on it. Anyways, big thanks to your support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Rafael Saya, and thank you, Rafael, for the 10. He said, hello, enforcers. I'm glad to hear that Romania is trying to unite to Moldova again. It was taken from Soviets for exploitation for 45 years as war reparations after World War II, and LOT, LSA.
And that's actually true. Yeah, actually, Moldova was a part of Romania for the longest time, and it would be interesting to see the two countries united. It's just that I don't know if there's going to be any political willpower in Moldova to do such a thing, and also dealing with the Russians in Transnistria, which they'd still have to figure out largely how to work that, because if Moldova becomes a part of Romania, then it's a part of NATO, and there's Russian forces still in Moldova, so do they get expelled? Is Romania given Article 5 protections off the bat, or some sort of a special circumstance? Those sorts of things would have to be figured out, but I'd still say that it'd be nice to see the two united, because historically they are both part of the Kingdom of Romania, which is now the modern-day Republic of Romania. So big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. Long live the Lee Spring Army, and with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Fighting Words Financial, who said, thanks for the great show.
And a big thanks to you for the support, and thank you so much for enjoying the show. We thank you greatly for that, and we thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep running a great show. And with that, we're on the next one.
And we also have a 5 from a Game Theory once again. They said, have you ever thought of getting a studio in town, making Enforcer Central? Honestly, that would be cool. Like, it would be neat, but the unfortunate truth is, that overhead would actually eat up most of the profits we make on the channel to like operate off of. It would eat most of that up. So it would be cool to have, but it wouldn't make any financial sense really, because we're high in the ratings. Like, we're top 50 in America most every night these days, which is a huge accomplishment, by the way. But it's just not like we don't have a budget like the huge mainstream media outlets do. Like, we just don't have that. But it would be neat. But Enforcer, what say you?
It would be pretty cool, but Matthew's basically dead on the nail. We don't really have the budget to do that. We don't really have the budget to do a lot. Like, a lot of people would think because we're way high up in the ratings, we have a lot of subscribers, that the channel's making a killing. In reality, we make enough to make a living for ourselves and live decently off of that. But we don't really have a lot of money to play around with, like, say, you know, let's, you know, open up a studio or open up a brick and mortar store. Like, we certainly do not make anywhere close to that amount. So it would be really hard to make financial sense of it, because the overhead of running a studio to basically do what we're already doing right now would be so expensive that we would basically be breaking even, or even taking a loss every month if we were to do that. So that's probably why until the end of our days, our studios are going to be run out of where we're living, to be able to try and cut down on costs and make it easily affordable enough to be able to run. So a big thanks to you for your support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Woodsman, who said, Rockstar already said the prices for GTA 6. And that they are a little bit higher than the usual, like that I'm used to. And also, they're apparently not including a disc with any of the games. It's just digital, and you get a code or something. At least that's what I've heard. And also, they're saying that it's going to be a single-player experience. I guess maybe GTA Online 2 is going to be released separately or something, I guess. But that's a bit of an interesting thing. I would say this, though. I mean, they could technically price it at anything. I'm sure people would pay it. Like I'm sure there'd be outlash or backlash over it, but they people are desperate to get their hands on GTA 6, but they could have priced it higher. So I think the price they put it at is it's letting themselves make a little extra money. I think they spent like $2 billion producing the game, by the way, so they got a huge break even point for that. But I'm sure tonight, once pre-orders finish, they'll probably have like $1 billion or $2 billion in revenue just from tonight. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, generally, the prices are really high. Like that's why I'm also waiting to see if it's going to be a good game before I even put money into it, because I don't really want to waste my money getting a bad game that isn't really fixed off the bat. And also, I don't even know how they're going to break even on that, man. Because when you think about it, it's like most movies these days, if they make like $500 million, they're like box office hits these days. Video games these days can get budgets like that in like 1 to 2 billion, and that's what they expect to be a decent break even point. It's like, man, the video game industry is huge these days when you think about the money that's flowing through it, even compared to cinema.
I would imagine they'll probably net their costs on it before it's over with. At least they'll probably make $2 billion profit off the game, if not more.
Yeah, I mean they'd have to make more than that. They're definitely gonna add an online probably a little bit later after the release, because online is a huge moneymaker. I mean the shark cards were what's floated the company for a decade at this point since GTA 5 came out.
Yeah, I think that might be why they took so long to get GTA 6 out. They were like, hell, why upset the apple cart? They were making bank off of GTA Online. Like they were milking that for everything it was worth.
Man, they looked at GTA Online. That thing was like a golden goose. Like it was unbelievable the amount of money that they were making off of that. So they're definitely. I mean, we can bet money on it. They're definitely coming out with that for GTA 6. Like they're going to make a second version of online, because once GTA 6 comes out, GTA Online for GTA 5 is going to die probably, and they're not going to be making that much money off of it. So they will need to re-release a new online for the Miami version in 6. So that's what I'll be assuming, but I'm still going to wait for it to come out to see if it's worth that huge price tag or not. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to DWRB. Once again, he puts in a 2. He said, forget GTA 6. I want Elder Scrolls 6.
I've heard a lot of great things about Elder Scrolls. I never played it actually, but I probably will play it someday. It's just that I'm not really big into fantasy, and that's kind of what stops me from playing games like that. So I can just never really dig into it for some reason. It's just not really my forte. But a huge. Mhm.
You've heard about Elder Scrolls 6, but you had never heard of Yum Some Guy Scrolls 6. I couldn't even get that out without laughing. That was awful.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. Like, I don't even know where to go with that. Like, I don't even know what to do.
Well, you had never heard of that?
I never in my days, like, I never heard of such a thing like that. That's unreal, man. That's wild. You're wilding out, man. But with that, a big thanks to your support. Double this channel to keep on running, DWRB. And with that, it appears that we're finally on to the Morse code decoders and some live chat questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
So jumping right into our Morse code decoders, we have Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Heroy Fluffness, Kush, Commentary Sire, and Brian. They said, excuse me. They said the Morse code says they better start getting their steps in because they are on ass flat. Because their ass flat out of gas. LTLSA.
Bro, read it right. Read it right. You're
Here's what
missing
they
it.
said: they better start getting their steps in because they're on their ass out of flat gas.
Oh my god, man. Let me read it. They better start getting their steps in because they're on their ass flat out of gas. There we go.
There we go. That's better.
Man, bro, you're reading it like somebody didn't even speak English, man. You said, "Oh, they get gas when flat on ass." Like, I was like, "The hell are you saying?" But anyways, shit, that's the sound of money. Hey, y'all got that down on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. And I gotta say, a big congrats to y'all for getting that correct time and time again, because y'all always getting that correct on the Least Spring Army Signal Corps. And so a humongous shout out to y'all once again. And also, it appears that we have another super chat to get to before we get to our live chat. So, Matthew, what do we got?
This one goes to Game Theory, who put in a 5. He said, can you explain the White House 2026 National Resilience Strategy posted today?
I didn't see it, but Matthew, did you see that?
No, I didn't see it, but National Resilience Strategy. I'm not sure if resilience is a word that should be associated with National White House at the moment. So I haven't read it, but I'm sure it's a beauty.
Let's see here. Oh boy. Oh no. This doesn't look good. The president. Oh, that we must glaze President Trump. They always had to put his name and everything. I'm getting damn merch like offers on the White House's website right now. So let's see here.
Merch.
Yeah, like literal merch, like go get a hat or a shirt or something. But
Oh my god.
oh my god, oh my god. Yeah, honestly, that's what I was thinking in my head. Oh man, but let's
You
see.
know, it's obligatory for every foreign leader to visit the White House gift shop and get themselves a couple of knickknacks before they head back.
Oh yeah, everyone's got to get a free hat and a shirt and everything. Um, let's see. Let's see. Ensure that it. So America First resilience requires common sense transformation driven by four key tenets: the prioritization of risk. That's a bad idea. Modernization of systems, distribution of responsibility through federalism, which is centralization of power, which generally, just to tell y'all, Republicans are actually supposed to be against. They're supposed to be in support of distributing power amongst the states, not centralizing it, and simplification of governance. Huh. Well, it sounds to
What is
me
word soup? What did Claude write this, or did somebody write it?
like it might be a mix, but the important part is the distribution of responsibility through federalism and simplification of governance. That sounds to me like they're trying to streamline it into a presidential republic to me, but that probably won't go anywhere in reality because you can't just will out the way of the Constitution. It's just not possible. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you for support Game Theory and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the live chats. We due to time constraints, folks, sadly we're only going to be able to get 3, and then we're going to be rounding out the stream fall of the night. So we're on to the third to last question of the night.
We actually chewed through most of the live chats during the super chat segment for the people asking for live chats. So we actually just have enough to get to about three or so of them. So this one here it goes to none other than Nova, who said, "Do you think Ukraine is teeing up for a fall offensive?"
Maybe. It doesn't. I'm not hearing anything about that yet, and we don't really see a lot of indicators for it. But they might be. If they were wise, I would say they probably are. And so I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one here goes to Trison, who said, "Any truth to the story of worsening relations between Poland and Ukraine?"
Yeah, there actually is. The president of Poland, Naroki, doesn't really seem to be that big of a fan of Ukraine, and he's trying to create rifts between the two for who knows why, really. But yes, that is actually a true story. Don't really know the real driving motives behind that for Naroki. But with that, I hope that has addressed that well. And we are on to the final question of the night. So who's the last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is JB Najalki, who said Ukraine is dominating, and how long will Putin put up with it? Or does he really have no options other than just to take it? And what are his realistic options to combat these ongoing attacks?
I would say that Putin is probably going to have to just put up with it because there's really not much more he can do rather than nuke them. They've already conducted all of the conventional actions that they can against Ukraine in every aspect, and it hasn't really done much to affect the Ukrainians' position in the war. And really, there is no effective I guess you say combating that the Russians could do to stop the Ukrainian attacks. They've tried literally everything in terms of air defense and air defense structures, and every single one of them have failed. So I would say there really is no way for them to protect against them. And at this point, the Russian collapse is more inevitable than ever. And Putin really can't do much more unless he was willing to nuke Ukraine, which would be pretty far out there. And the Russian Federation probably wouldn't survive that much longer in the world that they would create by making such an action. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, folks, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I have to say a huge thanks to everyone so much once again for watching over the course of 3 hours and 47 minutes. 115,000 people have watched this stream, and we had a peak viewership tonight of 16.7 thousand people. We thank you all so much once again for watching, and we thank everybody massively for spending your time and your support here on the channel to help us to keep this thing running and to be able to listen to the news from here, because we're greatly appreciative of each and every single one of y'all. We will be seeing you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is a short war video to be made, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that short war video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Slava. Long live the Leaf Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow. And a huge shout out to the 115,000 plus people that were here by the end of the stream tonight. And we hope to see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next Highland War News stream. And of course, you never can tell. Tomorrow's going to be Thursday. You know, it is, of course, a stock market day, but you never can tell what's going to happen these days. So we hope to see you all tomorrow. And with that, of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.